Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 23rd of June. Today, the new Partygate. Another Conservative campaigner takes a leave of absence as the election betting scandal grows.
Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey team up to condemn Nigel Farage as he faces the heat over his comments about Russia and Ukraine.
Spanish police intensified the search for missing teen Jay Slater in Tenerife as his mum reveals she's still hopeful.
And I don't know whether you can believe this, but it's actually 8 years today since the Brexit referendum. We'll be looking back, debating whether it's been a success or a failure.
And the Princess of Pop, Taylor Swift, meets the Prince of Wales and his children as they shake it off in London.
Good morning. UEFA are to investigate after Cristiano Ronaldo was subjected to 6 separate pitch invasions by fans during Portugal's win over Turkey. In Dortmund last night, Portugal coach Roberto Martinez has called for tougher pitch-side security. More on this and the rest of the action from the Euros later this hour.
Summer has finally turned up with increasingly sunny and increasingly warm weather expected over the next few days. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up shortly.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and you're watching Breakfast on GB News.
Tell you what, I hope the weather does get better today.
Oh,
and this heat wave they're talking about next week.
It's going to cause an absolute barrage, tsunami of people up wanting to work from home, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
big industry, big companies are being warned that they're going to hear a lot of excuses from their workforce about how they've got to work from home this week.
Well, I can understand why people want to make the most of it.
Well,
But you've got to work, though.
Yeah, but you can work from home.
Well,
Can you?
We can't.
We can't, no.
No, I've got a very busy week this week. Though I did enjoy it. We had a lovely barbecue last night.
There you go.
And then sat in the garden with the fire pit and all that. It just felt like summer.
It's
It was
been a
just
long
really
time
nice.
coming, hasn't it? Or at least it feels it's been a long time coming. And it should be more or less all over the entire country. I mean, obviously, we'll bring you the full weather report later, but it looks as though it's really going to be everywhere. Lots of lovely sunshine.
Oh, fingers crossed. We need something to
It
smile
lifts the
about.
spirits. Well, exactly. We need the spirits to be lifted, don't we, at the moment?
It feels like everything else is going slightly to pot somehow, depending on whoever you like politically. It all just seems to be going to pot. Really.
There's one pot after another, after another, after another every day. Things seem to be sort of just a little bit more depressing when it comes to politics.
Yeah, well, for the Tories, the betting scandal has got a little bit worse as well. It's being compared to Partygate by none other than Michael Gove, as the Conservative Party's Chief Data Officer, Nick Mason, takes a leave of absence amid claims he placed bets on the timing of the general election.
And, of course, this comes as 4 others now are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, the wife of the Tories' campaign director.
Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has admitted an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place.
But it's not just the Conservatives feeling the heat this weekend. The Reform leader, Nigel Farage, is really facing a lot of flack now after his comments about Ukraine and Russia when he was giving that interview to the BBC the other day.
All right, let's have a look at how Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey reacted to Nigel Farage's comments.
The Farage's comments about Russia and Ukraine are disgraceful. I've always been clear that Putin bears responsibility, sole responsibility, for the Russian aggression in Ukraine. And we have always stood behind Ukraine and supported Ukraine.
Now, what he said was completely wrong and only plays into Putin's hands. This is a man who deployed nerve agents on the streets of Britain, who's doing deals with countries like North Korea, and this kind of appeasement is dangerous for Britain's security.
And it's Putin and Russia who are to blame for this, no one else. And I strongly support the efforts that Britain has made to support the Ukrainians. I wish we'd done more, actually.
Well, the problem with this, I think, is that it's a nuanced argument. and it's very difficult to have a nuanced argument in this sort of febrile
Yes, and
atmosphere.
also the comments need to be seen in context and not just in a stark headline, which is very easy to jump to judgment when you just see a sort of stark headline.
Yeah, interestingly though, because a lot of people were posting it on Twitter yesterday, were Nigel, because in that interview Nigel talks about what he said in the European Parliament in 2013, 2014, and a lot of people posted that last night, so I had a good watch. And actually what he was saying then made a lot of sense. He was saying, and obviously that was off what was happening in Crimea, and saying, we need to be very careful. We're walking into a disaster. We're poking the bear. It will cause problems down the line.
And here we are down the line.
Well, in that sense, he's absolutely right. So it's very difficult to know exactly
He's
what's
done a big
going
interview
on.
in the Mail on Sunday today, Nigel Farage has, in which he tries to give a bit more sort of context. And I think a lot of people will agree that it's not that he's an apologist for Putin in any way at all. He's just seeking to understand why we might have poked the bear.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk to political commentator Peter Spencer. I mean, the interesting thing, as we said, Peter, is it is actually quite nuanced. The problem Farage is going to have with all this is people who back him are going to double down on him and say, well, he's making a really fair point. But it's those waverers that could be put off, and that's going to be the problem for him.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And of course, you say it's not a matter of just the screaming headlines. It is a matter of going into it in more detail, but most people will not. I mean, in my judgment, Farage has done himself absolutely no favours whatever with all this, simply because in Russia there is a settled position that Ukraine needed to be denazified because, of course, they have a totally controlled media. But in the rest of Europe and much of the rest of the world, the settled position is the only Nazi on the playground is actually Putin himself. And therefore, I think you're absolutely right, Steve, that there's going to be a great many waivers who think that Nigel has really played a bad one here. And of course, I mean, there's the old Oscar Wilde line that one thing worse than being talked about, it's not being talked about. Well, he sure as hell is being talked about right now, but not just being talked about. I suspect in this case, he's also being toxified.
Well, it's interesting that because he's a seasoned campaigner, is he not? He knows how to handle the media, and you can see that he's thinking before he opens his mouth. So do you think he probably judged this to actually stir? I mean, he is a disruptor, and to that extent, he's doing a good job disrupting.
Yes, he certainly is. But at the same time, I think he would like to be elected in Clacton, because if he isn't, he becomes Mr. Nowhere Mr. Nobody in political terms. But he also would like to have a fair few other seats if possible, and also after the election, which the consensus is that the Conservatives have lost and lost roundly. There is the idea that he would actually quite like to take over the Conservative Party. Well, I think and certainly in the more centrist wing of the residue of the Conservative Party on July the 5th will regard him as totally bad news and will not want to go anywhere near him.
I mean, of course, the interesting thing about all of this, I mean, from the Conservative perspective, at least, Peter, is, well, it's an excuse to have a go at someone else to try to distract from this ongoing betting scandal.
I mean, you look at that story and you think you just couldn't make it up. I mean, Rishi Sunak must be absolutely spitting nails about that. And it's quite interesting to note that Michael Gove, the outgoing Levelling Up Secretary, has compared it to Partygate and said, look, it looks like there's one rule for us, one rule for them. That sort of reminds me of the masochism strategy that Tony Blair used to espouse sometimes if things had gone very badly wrong. He's addressed it full frontally and he's invited all the spears to come in his direction. But it doesn't alter the fact that it just looks utterly, grotesquely appalling. And it is yet another nail in the Tories' coffin. And of course, Rishi Sunak took a bet on holding the election on July the 4th anyway. It looks like he's going to bet too far now.
Absolutely, and of course it's being compared by a lot of commentators to Partygate because it's, again, a sort of sleazy thing. It implies that there are people within the Tory party who feel that rules don't apply to them and that anything goes. And that does remind you of Boris Johnson's leadership, doesn't it?
Oh, totally, totally. And of course, Rishi Sunak came in as Prime Minister on the premise that he was going to rule, he was going to run the party and run the country in a dignified and correct fashion. But right now, I'm sure he is thinking, if he's ever read anything written by Shakespeare, of a famous quote from The Winter's Tale when the king referred to a nest of traitors. And that is exactly what he must be feeling he's got behind him right now.
It's interesting to try to sort of split the criticism amongst all the parties. What there isn't at the moment, apart from this sort of going private on your healthcare thing, there's not a lot to throw at Keir Starmer at the moment. But I guess that's the point, and he's played such a dull, boring, keep your head down campaign for that very reason, because he's got everything to lose.
Well, of course he has, yeah, and realistically, he can't be too specific about what he's going to actually do until he's actually finally got his hands on the Treasury's books and discovers just how bad the nation's finances actually are. And so, what he is offering, what he's in effect doing, is betting the farm on economic growth, which will stem, he argues, from inward investment. And of course, there has been that charm offensive by Rachel Reeves, who, remember, is a former Bank of England economist, with the nation's top bosses to say, look, your money is safe in our hands. And indeed, there was a Times Chief Executive Officers Summit last week in which it became very clear that the consensus was that the top bosses did feel that after all the hiccups and the blunders and the total instability of the last few years, that here at last was an administration, yeah, as you say, Stephen, boring, but that's just what they want. They want things to be boring so they can plan for the long term.
OK, Peter, thanks very much indeed. Well, you may have noticed Peter mentioned Nigel Farage and where he's standing in the election. It's the Clacton constituency. Let's run through all the candidates for you this morning.
Well, Jovan Owisu-Nepal is there standing for the Labour Party. You've got Giles Watling, the Conservatives, Matthew Bensilem, who's Liberal Democrat, Nigel Farage, Reform UK, and Natasha Osborne, Green Party.
You've also got Craig Jameson for the Climate Party, Tony Mack, who's an independent, Tesos Papanastasiou for the Heritage Party, and Andrew Pemberton for UKIP.
I wonder how early in the night they will call that constituency.
I don't know.
That will be very interesting.
It's just, you know, it's going to be one of the key ones to watch, of course. But, you know, how quickly will they count? It's always the North East.
Yes,
they pull out the
well, they see it as a matter of pride, don't they? Yes, it's always a race. So let's go back to the Nigel Farage situation now and the comment that he made in relation to Russia and Ukraine. Here's a reminder of that little clip from the interview with Nick Robinson on Friday evening.
We've provoked this war. It's, you know, of course it's his fault. He's used what
But we provoked the invasion of Ukraine.
Yes, and very interestingly, once again, 10 years ago when I predicted this, by the way, I'm the only person in British politics that predicted what would happen. And of course, everyone said I was a pariah for daring to suggest it. George Robertson, former Labour cabinet minister, who went on to become the Secretary-General of NATO, has in the last couple of weeks said the war is a direct result of EU expansionism.
Well, in response, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Mr Farage had been infected by the virus of Putinism.
Well, let's find out exactly what's what from the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. A very good morning to you, Robert. Please explain this. I mean, did anything Nigel Farage say in that interview make sense to you at all?
Well, I've discussed this with Nigel Farage on GB News, and he has been very critical of the war in Ukraine from the first. At least he's been consistent about that. And as he suggested, he is not alone. He was endorsed on Twitter, quite immediately by a well-known friend of Russia. I mean, that's George Galloway. And there is a curious left-wing academic grouping around the London campuses, the LSE in particular, that also believe in this idea of NATO as an aggressor. A lot of this trouble really started before Putin got to power, when there were undertakings given and taken about the sovereignty of Ukraine. And that's the thing you cannot get around. In 1994, in order for Ukraine to give up nuclear weapons, and it had a large bulk of the nuclear arsenal of the old Soviet Union, that the Russia, as it was then, the newly freed of communism Russia under Yeltsin, agreed at Budapest that they would support the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine. And it goes on and on from there. Putin comes to power at the beginning of the century, and he's always had an aggressive stance to NATO. Then you come to the extraordinary year of 2014, when there was an upheaval in Ukraine, because Ukraine had been offered association in trade terms with the EU, and there was the uprising, the Maidan Square thing, and you cannot understand Crimea until you look at the Maidan Square uprising, which threw out the president, who was Putin's man. And it goes on from there. But to say that NATO is an aggressor and a provoker, that's where we get into nuanced territory. Because was there an understanding that NATO wouldn't expand? It's very difficult to say.
No, to be fair, I mean, I'm trying to look at what Nigel said in detail, and I mean, he didn't say NATO was he didn't say NATO was an aggressor, but what he did say, and also when you look back at what he said in the European Parliament in 2014, was he said, you know, if we continue doing what we're doing and moving further east, then you are going to get a response from Russia. Well, he's been right.
Well, we didn't move further east. That's the point. What did NATO do after the annexation, which many would regard illegal? And it's certainly against the Helsinki Final Act, which guarantees borders and sovereignty, borders not being changed by violence, which the old Soviet Union signed up to in 1975 and was inherited by Putin. And what did the NATO powers do? Not as NATO, not necessarily as the EU, but they tried to get a ceasefire through the Minsk agreements. So I'm afraid, Steve, no, you can't have it that way. It is so nuanced that to call NATO a provocateur, yes, you would see it. That is Putin. That is a part of the essence of Putinism. And Putinism is about the expansion, curiously, of Russia and Russia's influence across the world and Europe. It wants to unite the Russian-speaking land. Talking to people, experts like Fiona Hill, who has talked at length about Angela Merkel, who was probably the most intimate interlocutor with Putin about this. As Fiona puts it, Putin, and as Merkel said to her, Putin has always had a thing about Ukraine. He couldn't bear that this wealthy part, which does have a key part in the history and the evolution of the culture of Russia, would go away. And the point about Putinism is it is imperium. It is an empire. He does see Russia as a great power, at least as great as the United States and China. And he's finding it very difficult to prosecute that. One of the things that we're looking at very, very closely, where I fear there may well be trouble, is in the Arctic, for example, where Russia is claiming half the coastline across the north of Europe and Asia, and wants to control traffic there, including the lease of icebreakers and so on. And when you look in one direction, it's typical, he's very clever in this. You look at the Arctic and you suddenly realize he's been extremely active and provocative in the Mediterranean. And there is the tacit support of the group of autocracies Iran, at least as important, probably more important than even North Korea. And what are they doing? They're bashing up international shipping with their sponsorship through the Houthis. One of the targets in the last 2 or 3 days has been a freighter carrying Russian coal. Would you believe it?
Seems amazing. I mean, we're asking there, along the bottom of the screen, did the West provoke Russia? Would it be fair to ask, did the West accidentally provoke Russia? Or did the West, NATO and the EU, understand fully that by even talking to those countries along that border who want to join NATO and want to join the EU, did the West understand fully enough the sort of way it would be interpreted in Moscow?
Well, who is the West? But this is where you absolutely have a point. And this is where the George Robertson argument comes in. And he was coming into NATO at that time, and he's now revealing, I think, he understood the doubters. And it's really when the Baltics joined, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, really close to, almost in the suburbs, one of them, of Greater St. Petersburg, was this seen as a provocation so far? I will say a very senior NATO general, and one of the most thoughtful, did say to me he wondered whether this was going to be a false prospectus, because that would mean that if there was any kind of deliberate attack, and there have been cyber attacks on these nations, became quite quickly full members of NATO. Under Article 5, an attack on one would mean a defence by all, including the UK. And that's where things get really quite murky. The messaging, I think, was extremely bad. And now this is where I am sympathetic to some of the approach of Nigel Farage, because I think that this is really the big question from this. I'm going to do a Farageism on you now, which almost no one is asking. What is NATO about to do now and can do over Ukraine and the widening crisis, the cluster crises? Because as I said, it's a group of satellites of crises. We've got the Middle East going on, we've got potentially the Arctic, and it has been linked by China to the destiny of the South China Sea and therefore Taiwan. I fear we're already in a neo-war. It is not obvious in the old terms of heavy metal industrial warfare, which dominated much of the 20th century, but that's where we're going. And Farage really has a point. We should really be thinking about it, about what this has got into. And I'm not sure. Look how foreign policy doesn't come into election campaigns. That I grant you. But look how we had very quickly both Starmer and Sunak saying, "Oh, we're going to up defence spending, possibly if available to 2.5% by the end of the decade." My understanding, picking up from Peter Spencer's excellent intervention, is there is understanding among the British Armed Forces now that there is absolutely no money. There is no extra money, because what they can see of the books, there are black holes all over the place, as we hear, both civil and military. And this is going to be a massive problem for the new government, and it happens within a week, because they have to go to NATO, to the big anniversary summit in Washington, where they have to decide on a thing that they haven't really had up to now, a civil and military strategy for Ukraine. Not one for next month, but for the next 4 years.
OK. Robert, appreciate your time and your perspective. Thank you very much indeed. How thoroughly depressing. But at
least we know more.
We do know more, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, the issue you've got, loads of you getting in touch already on this morning, saying Farage is right, the more is bashed, the more we're determined to vote for him. Robert sort of disagreed with half of what he was saying, and then agreed
to agree.
And so Nigel clearly has a point. It's just, but as we keep saying, it's a nuanced situation. I certainly think that we do need to fully and further understand Russia's perspective.
Yes.
It's not to say I think what Russia has done is right. I absolutely don't. But if you don't understand how they're thinking, how do you combat it?
Exactly. A lot of people are pointing that out, that it was a masterstroke by Nigel Farage to get everybody talking about reform again, and also a masterstroke by Farage to get everybody actually looking at the issue, which, as Robert Fox just said, foreign issues don't tend to come into a domestic general election. But now we are actually talking about it, and maybe that is well, how can it not be a good thing, really?
Yeah. Frankly, though, none of us know enough.
No.
But when
hugely complex.
Because when you look back, and I said, look back at what he was saying 10 years ago, and you just sit there and go, especially with the benefit of hindsight, you go, well, yeah, he was absolutely right. But again, there are other issues to look into, and none of us, or very few of us at least, are expert enough. But anyway, keep your thoughts coming through, gbnews.com.
It is a bit depressing when he said we are in a neo-war.
Yeah. That's really depressing.
And he knows what he's talking about, Robert Fox.
Right, it's 25 minutes past 6. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Well, the mother of the missing teen, Jay Slater, has issued a direct plea to her missing son as police intensify their search for him. She's saying, look, we just need you home. Jay travelled for a music festival on his first holiday without his parents.
Well, specialist dog teams have joined police and firefighters in the operation. The 19-year-old not been heard from since he called a friend on Monday morning saying he was lost and needed water. Last seen in the northwestern mountain village of Maska.
Pro-Palestinian protesters have sprayed red paint on an historic building at the University of Cambridge. Students and members of the Palestine Action Group targeted Senate House, and that's a building used for graduation ceremonies, has been used as such since the 18th century. A spokesman for the university said they strongly condemned this act of vandalism.
And a yellow heat alert has been issued for most of England. Temperatures look set to soar to 30 degrees across the country. It's going to come into force tomorrow morning until Thursday afternoons. Warnings over significant impacts on the health and social care sector.
And we've got a bit of breaking news now. We're hearing reports of significant delays at Manchester Airport following a power cut in the area. All departing flights are facing cancellation. A spokesman for Manchester Airport said a significant number of flights today are going to be cancelled, and the advice is for passengers expecting to travel today not to come to the airport without having checked first with their airline.
The Prince of Wales has thanked Taylor Swift for a great concert as he shared a photo of the pop superstar taking a selfie with him and his children. She posted her own selfie with Prince William, George and Charlotte alongside her boyfriend, the NFL star Travis Kelce.
And those pictures are all over the newspapers today. Perfect Sunday front page material, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what I like about it is that, I mean, William just looks like a proud dad.
Yeah.
And the kids look like I'm really pleased. I mean, you would be at that age, wouldn't you?
Oh, thrilled, yes.
I don't know, it just seems...
Happy
and normal.
Yeah. I think that's the thing about Taylor Swift's concerts, isn't it? Or, as I said, the only thing I've ever seen is people, journalists interviewing people going in and coming out, and they're happy. Yeah. I was stuck in a traffic jam, though, a Taylor Swift traffic jam, on my way home yesterday, because my route home goes past Wembley on the main road. But you can imagine every time there was a roundabout, it was chocker. It took ages to get home.
But that will have been hours before the concert.
Yes, yeah,
hours and hours before.
Yeah.
God, isn't it crazy? She is just this global sensation. I don't quite get why. I mean, I think her music's quite nice, but I mean, like a bit of pop.
Yeah.
But I don't...
Massive thing.
Yeah, there you go. Right, anyway, we've talked about how fantastic the weather's going to be, so let's get all the details for you with Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist. And the far northwest of Scotland, some low cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It is, would you believe, the final week to see how you could win our summer giveaway. 15 grand in cash, tax-free, and a whole load of treats.
Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are the details you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. That would be fantastic for the summer, wouldn't it? Still to come, all the latest sports news with Aidan McGee, so don't go away. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said Stump.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now, more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Time for the sport. Aidan McGee is here. Good morning.
Good morning to you both.
Do you want a selfie?
Selfies are very big at the moment because we got Taylor Swift selfieing with Prince William and the children.
But not during the concert.
No.
This is the difference. Ronaldo's had a much bigger problem.
What's going on?
It's not the first time this has happened, actually.
Well, you better explain what happened.
So, last night they're playing against Turkey in Dortmund, and one fan encroaches onto the field of play, wanting a selfie. We can see some pictures on there for the benefit of our radio listeners. And he deals with that one quite well. It's just a young fan, and a steward ushers the young lad away.
But that's mid-match.
That's mid-match,
so the child just ran out.
Yes, just ran out. But these are separate people coming on. It's not the same people coming on. So, again, we can see the pictures there of different people coming up and wanting selfies. And as the match wore on, it's fair to say that he grew increasingly frustrated. I mean, he caused stoppages during the match. Both sets of players lost their momentum. As I say, he's dealt with it quite well in the past, but I don't think he's ever been subjected to it 6 times in a match. And this is an enormous match. This is the Euros.
Yeah.
I just can't understand the mentality of football fans saying, I'm going to walk on mid-match.
Well, I think that's the money shot, isn't it? You want a picture with Ronaldo on the pitch, on the field of play. And I'll tell you why this has happened. It's because previously, over the last few years when it's happened, it's not been dealt with properly. In fact, dare I say it, Cristiano Ronaldo probably should have been a bit more hostile, even to the young kids who wanted to come on and have selfies. There's a time and place for that. You can do it in reception afterwards.
Well,
you can do it
would
by the bus.
Would it work if the managers or UEFA or whatever said, if a child comes on and wants a selfie with you mid-match, you have to just turn your back and walk away? You have to.
Yes,
in other words, if they were made to, then it would bleed back into the fans.
We're reaching that point. The manager of Portugal, Roberto Martinez, a man I've dealt with, very conciliatory man, not given to hyperbole, but he said afterwards, he said, look, we're reaching a point here. We understand why supporters would want to have photos with these global stars. They're not in their town very often, but something has to be done because how long? I mean, this is my view here. How long before we see a Monica Seles situation? Because it only takes one person to have intentions that are not they're very sinister.
Well, if somebody's walking towards you anyway, you don't know that they're going to say, hey, can I have a selfie?
No, of course not.
And get out a camera or get out something worse.
Of course. And so 1993, Hamburg, wasn't it, where Monica Seles, that destroyed her life and destroyed her career.
Remind us what happened.
She was stabbed on the courts, courtside in Hamburg at a tennis tournament, and a fan who was obsessed with Steffi Graf. See, her name was dragged into it all those years ago, and she had nothing to do with this. Nothing. They were great rivals on the court, and the guy came on and stabbed her in the back, and she was out of play for 8 or 9 months. She never really returned to the level she was. And I think she was on a run of something like 8 Grand Slams or 7 Grand Slams in the previous 4 years or something. She was going to be the outstanding talent of her generation, but she never quite had the confidence to return to court fully. In a way, she did win some tournaments again, I believe, but not to the level she was previously. And you can understand why. It affects the confidence. Now, you know, it sounds, it's a long time ago. It doesn't necessarily sound, you know, it doesn't echo exactly the same as what as what we saw yesterday. But how long before somebody does that?
Yes.
And I think that the Portugal manager is right to raise the issue. And UEFA, I think, will issue a statement today, I would have thought. And I think you'll see them pledging
Well, I mean, we
investigation.
don't want to go back to the position of having fencing up, do you?
No, we certainly don't. Well, fencing was a major contributor to the Hillsborough disaster, so I don't think we're going to see that back. But it is worrying because they're going to target these big events. And how long before terrorists look on the side and think,
oh, I know.
Blimey, it's a bit easy to get on that pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's adults, they will need turning away. If it's kids, well, just hold them to one side till half-time or whatever.
But if you see this, as it went on, it's almost like it was the family. It's like the number of people encroaching on the field got older and older. Right. And that's why he got very annoyed, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, and the other players must be annoyed with him. You know what I mean? The resentment would go through. Yeah, probably. I know it's not his fault, but in the end, you resent somebody.
Yeah, you do. Well, I think the players would show solidarity with the teammate actually and say, look, something needs to be done. Yeah. And I'm sure privately, Ronaldo, we were saying that this can't happen. This can't happen, and I think we'll see a little bit of change. It just seems the more they spend on security, the more lax it becomes.
It's very odd, isn't it?
It is. But they won 3-0.
Well, there you go. Look, talking of the Euros, because it's a huge night tonight for Scotland.
It is indeed. We've covered it a bit in the last few days, haven't we? But we're as you were. It's a huge match tonight, and I think that if you said to Scotland this time last week that you're going to get.
It's Hungary, isn't it?
Hungary this evening, yeah, for 8 o'clock in Stuttgart. So, home of the Porsche. So, I think if you'd said to them this time last week that you'd go into the final game playing against a team that have lost their first 2 matches, the bottom team in the group, with your destiny in your hands, i.e. a win should take you through. 4 points has always been enough in the Euros previously. I think if you look at World Cups, 4 points has only denied one team, and that was Norway, I think, back in the World Cup of 1994. I think Scotland would definitely have accepted that. They've still got the work cut out because Hungary could conceivably get 3 points tonight again with a win over Scotland and put themselves in an outside position to go through. So they've got, as I say, they've got plenty to do, but they've given themselves a chance, and everyone will be behind them tonight.
What time does it start?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, that's got to be one to watch tonight. Brilliant, Aidan. Thank you. We'll see you later on.
Still to come, we'll be looking through the papers with Andy Jones and Emma Wolfe. That's next. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The new BBC Director of Sport, who's a man called Alex K. Jelski, who's downplayed fears raised by sports women about biological men competing in female categories. And he's also called Martina Navratilova, I've got to say, has to be probably the most successful woman tennis player in history, and a very brave woman too. She escaped the Iron Curtain and she came out. And Sharon Davis, he says, are not experts on the issue.
At the same time, transgender US swimmer Leah Thomas has lost her legal battle and been told that she cannot compete at the Olympics.
So Leah Thomas made an appeal to World Aquatics, who have this rule in place that says that they protect the female category, as does athletics and world cycling. And because Leah doesn't actually qualify, because Leah isn't training, so she's not even someone that would be potentially part of the Olympic team. They've just said that, you know, you don't qualify to be able to bring this case. It's been thrown out on a technicality, thank goodness, and which means that, you know, swimming will not have any males beating elite females in Paris this summer, which was particularly good for me, bearing in mind that I now have to be very careful about what I'm allowed to say and not say. We're not allowed to use the words biological male, transitioned male. I mean, just every single possible way that we could explain that the person in the race wasn't a female, and it only affects women. It doesn't affect men. You know, females that identify as males are no risk to men's sport in any shape or form. It's just women that are losing their opportunities. The thing I take the most offence to, and this is very serious, and this needs to be dealt with by the BBC, and this is why I wrote to Tim Davie. In that article, he compared males that are identifying as women in women's sport to Jamaican and Ethiopian females being allowed to compete.
What?
The People's Channel. Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
6:45, let's have a look at some of the newspapers for you this morning.
Well, the Times leads with a senior Conservative Party official being investigated by the Gambling Commission for allegedly placing dozens of bets on the timing of the election date.
Sunday Telegraph has Sir Keir Starmer criticising welfare handouts, saying they lack the dignity of wages.
And the Rishi get richer, says the Mirror, leading with Rishi Sunak and his wife reportedly, making nearly £1 million a month just from their investments.
Mail on Sunday has Volodymyr Zelensky accusing Nigel Farage of being influenced by pro-Russian sentiment following those somewhat controversial comments.
And the Observer leads with Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer's growth plan being doomed to fail unless the UK rejoins the EU.
It's interesting from the Observer.
It is, isn't it?
Anyway, let's see what's making the news then with author and broadcaster Emma Wolfe and writer and journalist Andy Jones.
Good morning.
You two.
Morning.
Emma, let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph, should we? It's Labour in government is all about wealth creation, says Sir Keir Starmer. We've heard this before.
We have. I think this is very much Keir Starmer putting out his vision for how he's going to do all these things. We've had him at the football, we've had him at the Taylor Swift concert. He really wants to be seen as credible, as, you know, a man for the people, all of that. So he's now talking about wealth creation. He's saying that economic growth is the only remedy to the malaise in Britain, and that it's not about, that redistribution is not good enough, that it needs to be about people getting back to work. He's obviously talking about this massive black hole, 20 billion, possibly more, black hole. The welfare bill itself is set to reach 20 billion by 2030, and increasing numbers of people just out of work, long-term out of work, on sickness benefits, all of that. And I agree, and I think many people will agree, obviously work is not only good for the economy, it's good for people's mental health, it's good for their physical health, it's good to get Britain back to work. I do think there's a slight problem with his use of the term dignity. I think there's a lot of shame already associated with people being on benefits, and I think that this whole thing about handouts from the state, well, if you're sick, it's not a handout from the state. If you've paid taxes all your life and you're getting working child tax credits, any of that, that's not a handout from the state. If you're a pensioner, I don't think you'd feel it's a handout from the state. So I think he needs to be careful. He's going to alienate some of his party. Some of his party are not happy anyway that he's not lifting the two-child benefit cap. So this issue is a fraught one for Labour.
But it is interesting, isn't it, that he is moving away from redistribution of wealth, which basically means taxing the rich more.
Yeah.
So you can provide more handouts. So if he's saying, well, that's not the way forward, actually people need to be earning their own money and it's better for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to make out like it's talk about the positives of going to work rather than the negatives of him having to potentially cut the welfare bill, which is what we're going to have to do. Emma was talking in the story, describes how it's going to be 20 billion a year by 2030. And much of this malaise is also a hangover from those extended lockdowns we had, where it was there didn't seem to be any plan to get out of the lockdown, huge amounts of benefits, people living and existing on these. There's a lot of mental health left over, I think, from the pandemic as well. And also, whilst we can poke Keir Starmer about this, what's Rishi Sunak's plan for it? I mean, Conservatives have had 14 years where they've allowed this huge splurge on welfare, and there doesn't seem to be a plan by either party, other than talk about the sort of mentality of going to work, of actually how we're going to reduce this welfare bill that we've got.
Well, maybe the use of the word dignity is that Keir Starmer's trying to sell the idea of work in a different way.
Well, we should be,
Of course he is.
Because there is a dignity in
that's why I make the
working and then being paid for your work. Yeah.
And I think most people would agree with that, and that's why I make the point that it's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health. We know that. But I just think you're all right in the welfare bill has to be tackled, as well as possibly raising some taxes. He's committed to not raising the big three, but he's going to have to do something. On the front of the Express, there is also 20 billion black hole, Labour's 20 billion black hole. What is the Shadow Chancellor on her first day in office going to do? Well, she's probably going to have to call an emergency budget, because frankly, the cutting VAT on private schools is not enough. So they're going to have to cut this ballooning, bloated welfare bill, as well as possibly raising things like capital gains tax, squeezing the
Does that mean that she's going to have to cut benefits?
Of course they will. They can't go on
the
like
minute
this.
they're in office, they're going to have to cut benefits.
Well, I'm not privy to what Rachel Rouge is going to do, but I mean, they need to do something.
It's not going to be a day one thing that they do, no. But also, I think
it's about growth, is it? That's what they keep saying.
Yeah.
It's about we need to grow the economy, which is what.
This you're not going to do that
Keir
with people
Starmer is
not
saying
working.
here.
Yeah. Right, let's move on, because before we run out of time, Mail on Sunday, Andy. You see, it's interesting, isn't it? Nigel Farage sort of doubling down on his claims about NATO and the West and Russia, but he's also saying, I'm not an apologist or supporter of Putin. The invasion of Ukraine was immoral, outrageous, and indefensible. But of course, those lines aren't getting reported that much.
Of course. The moment you make any sort of softening stance about Putin, that's going to be the headline. And Nigel Farage knows this. I find it quite a strange position that he's found himself in talking about this. As you say, he does hammer the point in the Telegraph and the Mail on Sunday about immoral, outrageous, indefensible. But he does say if you hit the Russian bear with a stick, it's going to respond. And Reform, who we know have had a few problems with who they might have in their party and the voting procedures, they're one of their lead fundraisers, Jonathan Mappin, has been also saying all sorts of things for Putin. Apparently there's big cheering at Reform headquarters when this Farage statement came out. I think it's a very, very difficult thing that line for Farage to tread. There's going to be no nuance about this. I agree that the sentiment that the West has had an awful lot of time to do something about Putin, and they did absolutely nothing about Crimea. The various things that the EU has done has only provoked and encouraged Putin over the years. But I don't think Farage can really make much of a statement on this in terms of nuance. He's never going to be allowed a nuanced debate on it, is he?
No, that's the issue, because that's what you need.
But if you look back at the Panorama interview just from Friday night, what he actually says is, we provoked this war. Of course, it's his fault, but it's about EU and NATO over-expansionism, and that's what he's talking about. And I just so frustrating that there's no nuance in public debate. As you say, the minute Nigel Farage comes out with anything, it's you said this. Well, if you actually watch the interview and watch what Nick Robinson asks him and how he responds, he is very clear that Putin bears sole responsibility for his own aggression. But factors led up to this. That's all. It's like saying a rape victim, it's not her fault because she was drunk or whatever. All of that nonsense. No, but we need to then look at the wider issue of male aggression. There are layers and there is nuance, and we have no nuance or ability to hold two ideas in our mind with the media, with the current media.
Well, certainly not on the front page headline.
On the front page headline. But I do think it's going to play well with lots of his supporters who will know what he's actually getting at here.
It's whether you think you agree with what he said or not, I think it's worth watching that in context. Worth watching what he said in 2014 in context, and then it just gives you more of a...
It does.
I mean, I did that, and I have to say...
I came away feeling differently.
Yeah.
We've only got a minute left, so very quickly, what about Andy, your story here, about this former Commonwealth Games swimmer who had a stroke? And then what happened?
Yeah, so this is Jersey athlete Jack Allen, who was a swimmer at the 2022 Commonwealth Games. He was doing some mixed martial arts. I don't know if this is a new career opportunity for him, but he was kicked and he suffered a stroke after training and he's had this situation. Incredibly, he's been left with a French accent that he cannot shift.
When he woke up, he spoke with a French accent.
I don't know if I believe...
tellement bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
But there is a
believe
condition.
it.
There is a condition called foreign accent syndrome or something.
I don't know whether it's the way he slurs his words makes him, because he's had a stroke, makes him sound French, or it's actually like a
He's from
flamboyant
Jersey, so
French
we've
accent.
heard a lot of French.
Yeah, quite.
So maybe it's in there somewhere. And it came out.
That's a very good point.
Isn't that astonishing?
Very odd.
Amazing. Very cool.
Anyway, yeah, I'm impressed by your French. Right, we're out of time. Emma, Andy, thank you. Here's your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist. And the far northwest of Scotland, some lower cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance, John.
This is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to a brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
And you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
That's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich's statement. We're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Rendler's family are experiencing. You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
Morning to you, it's 7 o'clock on Sunday the 23rd of June. Today, is it a new Partygate? Another Conservative campaigner takes a leave of absence as the election betting scandal grows.
Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer, Sir Ed Davey team up to condemn Nigel Farage as he faces the heat over his comments about Russia and Ukraine.
Spanish police intensify the search for the missing teen Jay Slater in Tenerife as his mum reveals she's still hopeful.
And believe it or not, it's 8 years today since the Brexit referendum. We'll be looking back, debating whether it's been a success or a failure.
And Taylor Swift meets the Prince of Wales and his children as they shake it off in London.
Scotland stand on the brink of history at the Euros tonight with midfielder John McGinn insisting they're in the mood to prove people wrong. Scotland take on Hungary in Stuttgart later on. In tennis, Novak Djokovic will travel to Wimbledon this week, but says a knee injury could yet keep him out of the tournament. More later.
Summer has finally turned up with increasingly sunny and increasingly warm weather expected over the next few days. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up shortly.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I was just looking through the... trying to find a comment that I can read out. That's
you wait till we start debating Brexit.
Oh dear me, it's all. Here's an interesting one. Stephen, you stated that watching Nigel Farage's 2014 video makes you understood the concept of what he was saying. Well, I mean, I understood it anyway, but it just provides that. But you do need a bit more depth into it.
You see it in a wider context even now.
Yes. Why aren't you playing the video? I don't know if we've got access to it, off the top of my head, but also we don't want to turn the entire programme into a debate on this. But it's, we've got to look at all sides of this. And I think Nigel's getting a fair crack of the whip. I mean, and someone said, well, why haven't you got him on? I'd love to have him on. Unfortunately, he's very busy and hasn't got time to do everybody.
Yes, he's got so many jobs on at the moment, doesn't he?
I will tell you, though, I am seeing Nigel on Tuesday, so I shall be having a good chinwag about it all with him.
What are you doing?
I got this awards thing we're going to.
Oh, that's right, yes, of course.
So, and last year we were sat next to each other, so we might well be this year.
That will be very interesting, him being at something that's nothing to do with politics, to see what how people react to him. Because it's a do that's nothing to do with politics, and yet, the man walks in a room... And he is Mr. Politics, isn't he?
Especially at the minute.
Yeah.
So I can have we've got a 3-course lunch, I can have a right old chinwag. He's a lovely fella to talk to. Despite all you lot saying, or some of you saying, we hate Farage, or we hate... Of course we don't. But anyway, so that'll be very interesting.
Everybody. I mean, that's the whole point of... especially during an election period.
Yes. Talking of which...
Not long to go now, actually.
Oh, thank heavens. To be perfectly honest. The Tory betting scandal is being compared now to Partygate, which may sort of rile some people. Guess who's done it? Michael Gove. All this happening as the Conservative Party's Chief Data Officer, Nick Mason, has now taken a leave of absence amid claims that he placed bets on the timing of the election.
And of course, you remember this comes as 4 others are being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, who's the wife of the Tories' campaign director.
Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has admitted an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place.
But it's not just the Conservatives feeling the heat this weekend. As we've been talking, Reform leader Nigel Farage is facing down on his Ukraine-Russia comments after facing a barrage of criticism from other party leaders.
Well, let's have a look at how that response has been put forward from Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey.
Farage's comments about Russia and Ukraine are disgraceful. I've always been clear that Putin bears responsibility, sole responsibility, for the Russian aggression in Ukraine. And we have always stood behind Ukraine and supported Ukraine.
Now, what he said was completely wrong and only plays into Putin's hands. This is a man who deployed nerve agents on the streets of Britain, who's doing deals with countries like North Korea, and this kind of appeasement is dangerous for Britain's security.
And it's Putin and Russia who are to blame for this, no one else. And I strongly support the efforts that Britain has made to support the Ukrainians. I wish we'd done more, actually.
Well, joining us now, GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who isn't on a battle bus today.
I have a day off from the bus.
Yeah.
One.
This Tory betting scandal is growing, which is... I mean, you almost start to feel sorry for Rishi Sunak, that the people around him seem to be letting him down.
Yes, I mean, basically from the minute he came in, he's had trouble within his own party because lots of them didn't want him to be leader, felt that Boris Johnson had been taken out, etc. And he's had a huge party management problem right through. But this really is just like the cherry on the top of all the disasters that have befallen him. And now we have Michael Gove, who isn't standing again. He's leaving politics and saying that this is like Partygate. Now, I wouldn't have been surprised if Sir Keir Starmer had made that comparison or Sir Ed Davey, because clearly this is terrible, absolutely terrible. But, Michael Gove has said this, and it is. But I'm quite surprised that he wants to draw that comparison so publicly because, that so many people are still incensed with the behaviour of the government during Partygate, and that is one of the reasons why they're likely to lose this election. So we have yet another Conservative closely associated, with the Prime Minister, this Tory's chief data officer being investigated by the Gambling Commission. Now, the allegations are that he made dozens of bets. Now, not particularly big, the biggest sort of, up to £100, but nevertheless would have stood to make thousands of pounds potentially. So this is now the 4th Conservative. We've also had the one of the Prime Minister's close protection officers, and they're saying that they can't comment. He's denying wrongdoing, but these ongoing investigations, and potentially this is very serious because under the Gambling Act, cheating at gambling, having inside knowledge, could potentially land you in jail for up to.
It's also just dishonourable. It's a dishonourable thing to do, if indeed they've done it. During an election, for this to come out now is just appalling, isn't it? It reminds me of Margaret Thatcher's last days in power, when it seemed that all her ministers were letting her down. They were all going off and having affairs, half of them at least. One after the other, after the other, after the other. Every day there was a scandal. And it smacked of a leader who'd just lost control. And that's the trouble with this one too, isn't it?
Yes, and these people, the ethics of it, if you have some knowledge that the rest of the population, is it appropriate to go and use that to try to make money? And I think pretty much everybody would say, no, it absolutely isn't. And it's this one rule for them and another rule for the rest of us. And also, I think this story, like the D-Day, like that image of, David Cameron and the world leaders that went around the world, this is very easy for people to understand. It's got cut through, hasn't it? Everybody knows, putting a bet on if you've got inside knowledge. People will think it stinks. So Rishi Sunak at the beginning of the campaign needed some sort of miracle, but needed everything to go right. And it just feels like pretty much everything has gone wrong. I mean, some of it, of course, self-inflicted with D-Day, completely self-inflicted. Standing out in the rain, completely self-inflicted. This less so, but, you know, he is furious, but he's not suspending these people. He's holding on to this. There's an investigation. We must let it take its course. He could suspend them, but I guess the problem is, too, that, you know, we're hearing more and more. He doesn't know where this ends or how big this is.
No. Plus, they're still going to be on the ballot paper and all the rest. I mean, I know. Look, on this other issue, which is getting all of our viewers going this morning, Stephen Kenny says, all the other leaders slagging off Nigel Farage. Well, who'd have thunk it? But I guess whatever your perspective on what Nigel has said, politically, it's an opportunity. And so they are going to jump on it, aren't they? Of course, that's what you're going to do.
Of course they are. I mean, he poses an existential threat to the Conservative Party. Increasingly, there are polls putting Reform ahead. Now, sure, they're only going to win a handful of seats, but the damage that Nigel Farage is very happy to do to the Conservative Party is quite something. So, of course, they're going to go for him. You know, Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey. I mean, Sir Keir Starmer ultimately is going to be the beneficiary of Nigel Farage standing. But they all have this collective view that, you know, obviously Russia was wrong to invade Ukraine. They went in to a neighbouring country. That is not OK. Now, Nigel Farage is saying that too, but he's also saying, hang on a minute, there is some context here. Decisions that have been made by the West, by NATO, which, of course, is an organisation which exists to keep the peace, maybe have contributed a bit because NATO has gone closer and closer to Russia. And look what happened. You know, he said, back in 2014, I stood in the European Parliament and I said there will be a war in Ukraine. And certainly, you know, when Russia marched into Crimea, the West made all sorts of disapproving noises, but fundamentally didn't do anything. And that sent a message, didn't it, to Vladimir Putin? Well, you can get away with it. So now tried to go a bit further. But, of course, it's a general election campaign. There's very little room for nuance, as we've seen. And as you see on what gets clipped up and put on social media, people are very firm in their views. But I think it's worth saying, too, that while, you know, the political consensus and that in the West is we must support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And helping Ukraine, that's helping all of us to stay safe. There are people who look at the money being spent and think, this is not our war, why are we putting this money in? And, you know, so not everybody agrees with the views of the main party, certainly. And Nigel Farage is a disruptor, and look what he's doing. And also, here we are for the second day in a row, talking about him.
And talking about Ukraine. Which has fallen off the, out of the newspapers and off the telly for a long time, actually.
Right, Catherine, thank you very much indeed. We shall see you a little bit later on, unless you get on a bus in the next hour, which wouldn't surprise me. Just get on one outside here. Let's go for a spin round
They
somewhere.
actually go from... Well, the Conservative one goes from just...
Are they very... is there a sort of quarters at the back of the bus for the Prime Minister or for the leader?
Yeah.
And is it posher there?
I don't know if I've got to tell you about this. I've got some pictures we'll get for the next hour. But basically, the Labour bus I've only been on once because they have like a separate press bus, which isn't branded on the outside. The Tories do the same. But the Labour bus is very nice. At the back, there's an area which is curtained off for Sir Keir Starmer to sit or Angela Rayner, whoever. The Conservative bus is off the chart. Posh. They've actually got like a separate room at the back with a door with this sort of horseshoe, very swish chair sofa thing that wraps around and a table and sort of sparkling little lights under it. And I got to take possession of that room the other day.
There you go.
There I am.
Oh, I see.
Wow.
Basically,
it looks like a casino.
The Prime Minister was on it for an hour or so and had a chat with us, hence my crazy smiling picture yesterday. But after he got off, we were hoping to do...
You stuck in the back?
We were hoping to do a live.
Oh, look at that.
We said, could we go in? And they said, you're not really supposed to, but it's OK. So I took possession of the back of the bus. It was very
wow.
Travelling in style. But I have to say, though, is it true what they say about getting sick at the back of the bus? I did feel at one point like I might have vomited, and I was very worried. Can you imagine if that had happened?
Oh, that would be embarrassing.
That would have, especially since officially not supposed to be in there.
You could have left an apologetic note.
Yeah.
There you go. Right, Catherine,
That would be a heck of a story.
Oh, dear.
Gosh. Well, we move on, don't we? It's nearly 14 minutes past 7. Now, the mother of the missing 19-year-old Jay Slater says that Spanish police have stepped up their search for her son, who disappeared in Tenerife 7 days ago now.
Yeah, well, yesterday afternoon, search and rescue police and firefighters combed through a vast area of the valley where he was last seen.
And this comes after Debbie Duncan, his mother, spent 8 hours in a police station on Friday, where police outlined their detailed search plans.
Let's talk to former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit, Mike Neville. Mike, good to see you this morning. What's your assessment of what is going on now, a week in, where rather than things being in any way scaled down, they're being scaled up?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Spanish police they've published quite detailed analysis of where they're going to search, focusing on these 3 ravines. And there's been similarities drawn, of course, through this search and the one for Dr. Michael Mosley. But the difference in the landscape you can see when you view the television images of the island, that whereas where in the Greek island it was pretty barren, this area of Tenerife is quite wooded, and so there's so many places that somebody could have laid down to rest or take shelter, and it's not so visible from the air. So whilst the Spanish police are making use of helicopters and drones, they're really reliant on humans, so either the police officers, volunteers or park rangers and dogs to try and locate Jay Slater. Now, we can only hope that he is alive and he's okay, but it's a long time now, and this is an area which is hot in the day and very cold at night. And of course, the lad was out in clothes that he'd worn at a festival, a T-shirt and shorts. So we can only hope that he's found very, very dehydrated somewhere. But I really feel for the mother, and I know every mother would have great hope, but it just doesn't look like it at the moment.
Brother are out there as well now. There's a lot we're not being told, which I suppose you can understand at the moment. But, for instance, the 2 British men he was seen with at one point were staying in a bed and breakfast type place, a rented accommodation, and the press and the police have already spoken to the landlady there. So, I mean, there must be things that we're not being told that they're also looking into.
That's right. I mean, there's all sorts of speculation on social media, and matters have been reported in the press and the Express, especially about Jay's past. And these things will be being looked into. And there's been another possible sighting several hours later that his mum's highlighted. But the Spanish police do seem to be focusing on this theory that he's got lost himself. They're basing it on the idea that he rang up himself and said, look, I'm lost. So they seem to be discounting any elements of criminality or some kind of kidnap. And they're really focusing on this, the area of the park. And as I've stated, they've actually shown maps of the ravines that they're looking into. And so I think the Spanish police have been quite good at PR in the sense that they are telling us exactly what they're doing and the theories that they hold.
Again, from what you did in Lambeth, there must be an element, Mike, of you dealing with families involved in all of this. How do you even begin as a police officer to deal with the family of someone who is missing, especially a week in under these circumstances? Do you want to keep their hope alive? Do you want to manage expectation? What would you do?
Well, that's the balance of exactly what you've got to do. And what we've seen is that whilst the Spanish police have refused the offer of help from Lancashire Police to say, look, we've got sufficient resources to do the search, it would seem that Lancashire Police have said that they've got somebody liaising with the family, so that'll be a specialist family liaison officer who's trained to deal with families when there's been a very serious incident, including something like a murder, and this sort of critical incident. And also you'll have the Foreign and Commonwealth officials who are dealing with them. And it is that issue of, yes, keeping hope alive, being able to break that communication barrier, because, of course, the mother's already said her frustrations, that she doesn't speak Spanish and some of the officers don't speak English. So those, the family liaison officer, the Foreign and Commonwealth officer, they'll be absolutely vital in making sure that everything is explained, that some of the nuances, some of the differences in what things might mean are fully explained to the family. And so, because what they need is to keep the family on side, so if any other information comes through, this is quickly passed on to the police.
OK. Mike Neville, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
And the other horrible aspect of this, and it happens time and again now when we have a story about somebody who's missing or whatever, is the trolling that goes on on social media about, I don't know, saying the most horrible things, as if that's helpful to anyone. It's just so... It brings out the nastier side of some people.
Which is unbelievable. Yeah. Why is it that some people have this need to try to deliberately upset people?
I mean, the mother has been saying to various journalists that things she's having to read on, and she needs to keep on social media in case there's something relevant. But the trolling she's getting is absolutely appalling and incredibly upsetting.
There are some very weird people out there. And so that's why I say that this social media thing, I know it's very useful, it can be good, it closes gaps in the community in some respects, but it does open the door for a lot of nastiness from people who need to take a good look at themselves, really. Right, it is 7:20. Let's run you through some other stories this morning as a yellow heat health alert has been issued for most of England. Temperatures look set to soar to 30 degrees this week. The alert comes into force tomorrow morning through till Thursday afternoon. Could have significant impacts on the health and social care sector, apparently.
Now, there are significant delays at Manchester Airport this morning, apparently following a power cut in the area. A significant number of flights from Terminal 1 and 2 are expected to be delayed or cancelled today. A statement from Manchester Airport is encouraging all travellers to check with their airline before even heading out to the airport.
Pro-Palestinian protesters have sprayed red paint on a historic building at the University of Cambridge. Some students and members of the Palestine Action Group targeted Senate House, which has been used for graduation ceremonies since the 1700s. The spokesman said they strongly condemned this act of vandalism.
And the Prince of Wales has thanked Taylor Swift for a great concert, as he shared a photo of the pop superstar taking a selfie with him and Prince George and Princess Charlotte. And then, of course, she posted her own selfie with Prince William, George and Charlotte alongside her boyfriend, the NFL star Travis Kelce.
I love the fact he got in the back of the shot, because the kids are going to be like, who's he?
Yes, that's right.
I don't care about NFL.
No, that's the trouble. But maybe they do. Maybe they will. They'll know. Anyway, it looks as though they know her. They've obviously already met. Prince William first met her a couple of years ago.
He sang with her.
That's right, he did. But did you see they actually caught him dad dancing as well? Yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, somebody spotted them up in the terrace and took some video of them, and he was definitely letting it all go, wasn't he?
Good on him. At least he's in the picture. I took my niece to meet the Vamps, huge Vamps fan. And because I know one of them, I said, oh, can we come along? Can we? And so we went up to the dressing room before the concert in Manchester. And we're just hanging about for a bit, and then, of course, she had a picture taken with the boys and all that. And the girl who was taking the picture said, oh, do you want to get in? And, of course, I had to go, no.
No.
Actually, I would have loved to have got in.
Yeah.
There you go, and had a picture with the Vamps.
But you didn't?
But I didn't, no.
Oh, you've got to have the courage to just be a fan sometimes.
But at least then it's a nice picture of Isabel with all four of them, and she was absolutely a mega fan. Yeah. So that was nice.
I went to a Star Trek, it was a premiere of a movie. Oh. And what's his name was there? That's Captain Kirk.
Oh, Shatner.
Yeah, he was there, and all people around me were saying, "You're so go and ask for a photograph with him." I said, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly." And in the end, it was my brother-in-law who said, "Do it now, and I'll take the photograph." And so I went up and he had no idea who I was at all, of course, but I knew who he was, and I've got a photograph. You've got to have the courage to do it.
I know,
sometimes,
it's just
it's
embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
It's oddly really embarrassing when you do this job. Somehow
yes,
to go.
it is. It feels as though you shouldn't do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody it's a one-off, you'll never probably ever have the chance again. You should make yourself do it.
As I should.
Yeah.
Should have done that. I do regret not doing that. Anyway, enough of that waffling on. Let's have a look at the weather forecast with Aidan McGiven.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist. And the far northwest of Scotland, some lower cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, you don't want to miss out, because it is the final week to enter our summer giveaway, which is £15,000 in cash and a whole host of treats as well.
Yeah, but lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, so if you want to be in it, make sure you don't miss out. Here are all the details you'll need.
It's the final week to see how you can win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh yeah, best of luck to you on that one. Now, as it heats up this week, we're going to be testing whether your sun cream protects you really as much as it's meant to.
It's pretty shocking, and it's not just about the money you spend on it either. You're watching Breakfast on GB News. Come back soon.
I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The University of Cambridge has told students to stop flirting with staff under a new policy banning sexual relationships with professors. The new rules, which come into force next month, beginning of July, include a warning against behaviour that could be interpreted as flirtatious. University staff have been told they must report any behaviour that could constitute a student making advances towards a personal, particularly intimate relationship with them. If you're a tutor, how do you interpret what is flirting and what is just sort of like having a bit of banter?
In fact, you've got to
Very nice trousers, by the way.
Thank you.
You see, you didn't even recognise.
Oh, I didn't. I think I'm blushing now. I'm blushing.
So, what's flirting? What's me complimenting your very well-fitting trousers? Yes.
Well, there is a line, because obviously when you're 18 and you go to university, it might be the first time you're away from home. It might be the first time that you're open to maybe a bit of a nightlife, social activity, drinking, and all the rest of it. On the flip side, I know a couple who, this pupil ended up dating their professor, and they've been together for about sort of 15 years now. So I used to go after lectures with my professor and the whole seminar. We used to go to the pub afterwards, and I became very good friends with, she was a mature student. She was on the very, very far left of political. You wondered where that was going for a second, didn't you?
We're both breathing a huge sigh of relief.
Very quick for you, Joe. We're running out of very nice trousers as well. We're running
Thank you, not as snug as Charlie. I think you've got to have some rules in place that there's no abuse of power. Policing it's difficult. We ought to be in a position where you can say, get off, back off, or, banter's fine. Actually, I hate that word. I hate it almost as much as woke. Go on, email in.
Thank you very much. I'm flirting with both.
The People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello again. Now, I know we're all looking forward to a bit of sunshine, and we're going to get plenty of it this week. But, of course, there's a yellow heat warning out. Many of us are going to be heading to the pool or beach to cool down. Swimmers, hats and sun cream is going to be essential. But what if your sun cream isn't what you think it is?
Yes, because we all look at what it says on the bottle, but it might not, according to some tests being carried out, be doing what it says. This is Which that's done all of this, and some of the most common options on the market, apparently, don't offer adequate protection.
Even though they have big numbers and everything, doesn't necessarily mean anything. Joining us now is NHS dermatologist Dr. Jason Thompson. Very good morning to you, Dr. Thompson.
Good morning.
Jason. Can you explain first, what do sun creams do? What is it in them that would stop you burning?
So sunscreens do two really important things. They protect you against the sun's ultraviolet rays, and the two parts of the sun's rays that can cause problems are UVA and UVB. So sunscreens, their main function is to protect you against UVB, which causes skin cancer. So that causes sunburn and skin cancer. So they're really important to protect us against skin cancer. UVA is the other thing that they do when you've got a broad spectrum sunscreen. So they protect you against UVA, and that causes premature skin aging. So they're really important products, and they're classed as cosmetic products. And the way they do this is using things called sunscreen filters or UV filters. So there's lots of different filters out there available on the market, and different products will use different combinations of filters to give you that claimed protection that's on the label.
Yeah, but of course, it's the label that counts in all of this. You look at it, and especially for, well, I think loads of us now are going for a sort of SPF 50, aren't we? Because that seems to be the way forward for a lot of us. However, what have these tests showed on these sort of numerous brands that have been tried out?
So which have done? They've done the exact same test that the sunscreen brands themselves have to conduct. So there's an internationally recognised sunscreen test that you have to do to get your sunscreen on the UK and the EU market, and which have basically done the same test. So this is a test that's usually done in people, and it's at least 10 people, and they check the skin's reaction to sun with and without the sunscreen on. So that's the main test that they've done. They've also done the UVA test, which is actually not done in people. It's actually done in a laboratory. So they've done that UVA test. So they've found that in 3 of the products that they tested, the claimed SPF that they found was nowhere near what they were, what the brands were saying themselves, which is a cause of concern because we should be able to trust these products. And they're doing a really important thing for us.
Yes, absolutely. And the interesting thing as well is that it's not necessarily the ones with a big brand name or indeed a big price label that are the best. In some cases, the cheaper ones are better.
Well, I think it's difficult to say one's better over the other. Obviously, these 3 that have failed the test, there is some cause of concern there. We do need to look into why the tests have failed again. But yeah, there's one thing to say is that there are strict rules in the UK for all cosmetic products, and sunscreens are probably the most stringently tested out of all cosmetic products. And every brand that puts a product out there will have done all these tests. They'll have good evidence to show that their products meet that claimed SPF and UVA on the label. So for us then to repeat these tests and it not to pass, there's something is not correct here. So I do think we need to try and understand more about why the witch study has failed, because it's meant to be a standardized test that we're doing. So it is a cause of concern.
I mean, I guess we're talking about mass manufactured lotions, aren't we? So, I mean, you've got to ask, is there an issue with the testing, or is there an issue with how these lotions are being produced, whether there's variations week to week on what is going into the tubes?
Absolutely. I think there's probably a combination of both those things. There's definitely going to be batch-to-batch variations, but the brands and the manufacturing companies do have strict quality control processes that they check everything. But also, this study usually is done in at least 10 people, and 10 people isn't a huge number of people. So you might do the study in 10 people and then do it in a different group of 10 people, and conceivably you can get a different result. Now, just to say that these tests do have statistical significance, so they should be kind of significant, and you should be confident from that group of 10 that you've got your SPF 50 if that's what you're going for. But it is conceivable to see that if you did it in a different group, you'd get a different result. And just to say that medicines in the UK have to go through much stricter regulation and testing. So you do a study in hundreds or thousands of people. So it's kind of, we need to kind of have a bit of an understanding that cosmetics are just never going to have that very high bar. So what I would say is the most, and probably the most kind of concerning thing about sunscreens is that people just don't use anywhere near enough of the sunscreen to get that claimed protection. So studies show that we actually put about a third of the required protection, the required sunscreen amount on. So that's really the main message here, is that you need to put much more sunscreen on than you think you do. There's different ways that dermatologists, we talk about this teaspoon rules and 2-finger rules, things like that. I think in reality, you're not going to take a teaspoon to the beach with you this week. So my main kind of message would be just put lots more sunscreen on than you think, on you and your children. Reapply as soon as you're out of that water. If you're in the sea, reapply your sunscreen. Reapply it just after you go out in the sun, and make sure that you're kind of protecting yourself with other measures, because sunscreen is just one tool in our toolkit against protecting from UV. There's other things that you can do as well that are probably more effective, like seeking shade between those strong midday hours when the sun's at its highest, using hats, sunglasses, those kind of things. They're actually probably more effective than sunscreen.
Right. Yep. Well, I need to bear all that in mind. Jason Thompson, really good to see you. Yeah. Thanks very much indeed.
Just in case you wanted to know, it's the Calypso Press and Protect Sun Lotion, which is £8. I mean, they're very expensive, some of these. Barely mustered 2/3 of its claimed SPF 30, apparently. Then you've got Asda's Protect Moisturising Sun Lotion, SPF 30, failed both rounds of testing. And the Bondi Sands SPF 50+, again, did not come close, says Which, to the claimed SPF or minimum required. But the one that was interesting was one that was just £3.29 from Lidl. The Cien sun spray triumphed in the testing and did an all-round excellent job. And there are a couple of others. If you read up on it, and it's in all the newspapers, some of the cheaper ones are much better.
It's like that with moisturisers, apparently, isn't it?
It is, I think so.
Anyway, look, we reached out to Asda, Bondi Sands and Calypso. Asda said when Which reviewed this same product in 2022, they awarded it great value at that time and it passed their SPF test. The product formulation has not changed since then, so we'd question the validity of their test.
All of our products undergo rigorous testing, they said, and ensure they meet and exceed industry standards and requirements. Bondi Sands will work with Which to better understand testing results. That statement from Bondi Sands.
Yeah,
we haven't had a
Calypso
response from
yet.
Calypso. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, but you've got to take it on faith, haven't you? There's no way of sort of checking it yourself at home. But as the good doctor said,
keep slapping it on.
Plenty. I'm guilty of not doing that.
Yeah, I know. It's because it's horrible, isn't it? Covering yourself.
I did buy one because I was advised to. That is like a mist spray, and so it goes on like without any hassle. It's not sticky or anything. It just dries. And
Really?
So that's quite good. But I guess is it? How much would you?
Come across that one? Was it very expensive?
It's about 15 quid.
Yeah, you see, they get very expensive.
But whether it's how much you would have to spray to get the proper level, because you just give you a bit of a mist. Look at me doing this.
Just keep doing it.
I'm reaching an age where I've got to action everything out with my hands.
Is that an age thing?
I don't know. Is it a northern thing?
No, it's not northern.
What time do you want to meet up? It's all that sort of thing,
Oh, I
isn't
see,
it?
yeah. People who talk about,
Yeah.
I rang you last night.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, we're being told off because we're waffling too much, so we'll go to a break and we're back with the sport in just a minute.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Right, time for the sport. None of this party's for us this morning. Aidan McGee's got the sport instead.
Good morning to you both.
Morning. Right. Can we start with the tennis?
Yeah, I want to do a little bit away from the Euros because it's been the Euro saturation, isn't it, in the last couple of weeks. But this is interesting because we know about Andy Murray and Wimbledon and the fact that he's not sure whether he's going to compete. He's had his surgery yesterday. Well, Novak Djokovic, his great rival, his great friend, at the same age, 37 years old, seems to be in a very, very similar position. He had a knee surgery 17 days ago in Paris, having pulled out early from the French Open. I think it was the 4th round. And he says he's going to travel to Wimbledon. He's going to go through the practice. He's going to be at the All England club. But he can't say, as of now, whether he's going to be able to compete. I think he has to let them know by the middle of the week whether he's going to be able to line up on July the 1st. So they really are playing brinkmanship, these two players particularly. Don't forget, Djokovic has huge pedigree at Wimbledon. He's been in the last 5 finals. So it's more of a bearing on it probably has more of a bearing on the tournament and the layout of the tournament than Murray does, with the greatest of respect. But he's been in the last 5 finals. He's won 4 of them. He lost last year against Carlos Alcaraz, who looks like he's going to be the heir apparent to Djokovic's dominance at Wimbledon. And
do we know what the knee injury is?
I don't know if there's actually specifics. He's very circumspect and secretive about his injuries, as he is about his diet. But he has put some.
I think it's connected to the leg bone, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Probably the knee bone. Yeah. I've got down here a medial meniscus.
Okay,
but that doesn't help me at all, really.
No. Well, look, he's put up some.
Any sort of surgery, how? When you're playing at that sort of level, how could you possibly be better in just a couple of days' time?
Well, unless he's underplaying it, unless he's playing a little trick on his opponents to overstate his the.
Oh, they don't play those sort of dirty games, do they?
No, not often. No, you can bet they do. I can assure you. But he's put up a couple of videos this week. He's got 14.6 followers on Instagram, saying that he's upbeat and he's hoping to line up. So we'll see. I never write Novak Djokovic off in any situation.
No.
14.6 million, I guess.
What did I say?
14.6.
Did I?
Yes, I was wondering what 0.6 of a follower was.
There
you go. Let's have a very quick look at the Spanish Grand Prix. Who's in pole?
Lando Norris, the second time he's done it in his career, and it's encouraging for the sport. The reason the Grand Prix doesn't get mentioned much on these bulletins is because it's so processional and it's so dull. The same person wins it every week. Indeed, Max Verstappen is 60 points ahead in the table this season, and the Grand Prix is underway at 2 o'clock this afternoon in Barcelona. And there's just a sign that there might be a little bit of competition in the next year or so. We know that Lewis Hamilton's going to Ferrari. That might just shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, might do. Aidan, we're out of time.
See you in a bit.
See you later.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the papers in just a couple of moments.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
What about the elections? Because it seems that the King and everything is moving because of it, and we've got a lot of royal engagements and things that happen at this time.
Yes, well, it means that he has to take more time and be at home. He can't go to all the things he wants to do. He's been doing 5 a day, which is probably made Camilla a bit cross. But what they still hope is that they can get the Japanese Emperor and Empress over. That's in July. That they can go to France for the 80th anniversary of the fighting. And he will be able to do 1 or 2 things. And Ascot he's very keen to do. Now, those aren't things that are political in any way. I just want to talk about Harry and Charles's argument, where Harry said he didn't want to stay, he wanted to go to a hotel. And it's come out now that actually King Charles is believed that he was offered St James's, and Princess Anne stays there and Beatrice stays there.
And this was for when Harry came over for his 10th anniversary.
Exactly. And the policemen are wandering around with guns, and there's no chance of actually there being any problem there. So the fact that he said that it wasn't safe for him was not actually a very sensible thing to say, I don't think.
Well, he went to Nigeria, and that is, in the world ranking, it's ranked as quite a dangerous place.
Yes, one of the dangerous places in the world. But now Harry and Meghan have been invited to go to Ghana.
Oh, God. Well, it's interesting because my parents are from Ghana. I have Ghanaian heritage, and I'm thinking she'll probably then claim there's a percentage that she's Ghanaian as well. I'll be like, hang on a minute, you were Maltese, you're also Nigerian,
and
now you're going to say you're Ghanaian and German.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you very much.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, let's get them all in. Angela Levin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the papers this morning with Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones. Morning, you two. Emma, I'm bemused by this in the Sunday Mirror this morning because they're having a go at Rishi Sunak, who we know is very, very rich, for making money.
Well, yes, and I normally wouldn't, I don't like these personal attacks on politicians, but I didn't know he is our richest ever Prime Minister. He really is wealthy. He has 4 homes, so he's got 2 in London, 1 in Yorkshire, and then 4.4 million one had in Santa Monica. Santa Monica, 5.5 million, sorry. And the thing I think that sticks in people's craw...
money, though, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of it is his wife's money. So they're making, I think, £1 million a month more. These are dividend payouts from the shares in her father's company. And his investment, Rishi's investments during his time as a hedge fund manager. So I think what people kind of object to is when you're it's just money that's coming in, basically. Yeah. They're not working really, really hard and being paid a lot like a footballer or something. Or they're not sort of working.
Yeah, it's just money that's making money.
It's making money, and I think.
I mean, he's probably working quite hard, Rishi Sunak. Whether he's doing a good job or a bad job,
but the Prime Minister's salary is sort of negligible compared to this.
Yeah, quite.
I think, absolutely. But I think during a cost of living crisis, the worst one for a generation, how can you understand how bad it is? How can you understand how hard it is when people are paying double for a pint of milk or double for a loaf of bread when you have that level of wealth? I'm not attacking him personally, but I think it's an interesting story, this, because he's so wealthy.
All they've done with this story is take the value of her shares in 2020 and then look at how they've gone up. Wow. They're basically bashing Rishi Sunak for this. And I think it's a bit of a flimsy story. I'm absolutely in agreement about does the Prime Minister understand the needs of common people? We saw it with the D-Day catastrophe where he left the world leaders and the veterans on the sand just to go and do some nonsense on a TV interview.
No, that's a judgment you're saying. I'm saying I don't think he can. I think he wants to. I don't think he can understand.
I was going to finish. The other thing that we saw he doesn't understand the cost of living, which I was going to move on to, is the fact of him saying that when he was younger he didn't have Sky TV. I mean, I don't have Sky TV now. So
I didn't have TV.
Quite. I think that's the sort of thing. I think this is a story where I think it's a really big headline. The bigger news story from it, big news line in it, is that they've got a combined wealth of more than the King, 651 million, Rishi Sunak and his partner's apparently worth, which I think is a bigger story. I think the fact that it's gone up 1 million or whatever a month in the time he's been in government, it's a bit. All they've done really is looked at the share price in 2020. I
just think lucky devil.
The share price in 2024.
Yeah, lucky devil. Look, I hate to, and I know loads of you aren't happy because the paper reviews have been shorter lately, but that's only because we've got so much to cram in at the minute. So I do want to crack on to something a bit lighter, but it's still money related. Because we're having a go at Rishi for being loaded. Not Elton John, who was also loaded, but he's giving an awful lot away to charity, Andy, according to the Mail on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elton John is the UK's most generous celebrity, donating more than £3,000 to charities every single hour. So well done to Elton. Who has a £450 million fortune. He gives £74,000 a day to charitable causes close to his heart. J.K. Rowling is second in the list. She gives away around £3,000 an hour. Any guess on who might be third?
Ooh.
No, I don't know.
Sir Lewis Hamilton gives away 1,200 quid an hour.
Does he indeed?
Yeah, I'm not denigrating Lewis at all, but I was quite surprised he was third, and good on him.
Yeah, good on him.
And fourth and fifth are Sir Alan Sugar and Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Oh, well, there you go. I tell you what,
Good for them.
I'm often a bit critical of footballers because they earn so much money at a very young age, but actually a lot of them do a lot of good work, a lot of them give a lot of money away and all the rest of it, so they do spread the wealth a bit.
Have we got time just to talk about ABBA, Emma? They never wanted to be called ABBA.
Yeah, well, this is Bjorn Ulvaeus. No, we've talked about my French accent. I can't do Swedish. Anyone else good at Swedish?
Ulvaeus.
You've only got a few seconds.
OK, so
tell us the
they're not
story.
very happy. Bjorn Ulvaeus is not very happy with the term ABBA. He wanted a cooler name, like Northern Lights or something that he says. Actually, they were called ABBA because of Agneta, Benny, Anya and Bjorn. And so it was just a kind of shortening, ABBA.
But they thought it was a rubbish name.
They thought it was a rubbish name, which I think is hilarious.
It's a great name.
It's been brilliantly successful for them.
It was actually the name of a herring factory in Sweden as well, and they said they can only have the name if ABBA promised not to ever sell any herring.
Yeah, that's true. Perfect.
Not much of a temptation there,
There
really.
you go. No, and is that a picture of Agneta?
Agneta.
Brilliant, doesn't she?
Does,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, she always
right,
did.
Emma, Andy, thank you. We will see you later on. Here's your weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist, and the far northwest of Scotland, some lower cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock, Sunday the 23rd of June. Today, the new Partygate. Well, another Conservative campaigner takes a leave of absence as the election betting scandal grows.
Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer, Sir Ed Davey all team up to condemn Nigel Farage as he faces the heat over his comments about Russia and Ukraine.
Spanish police intensify the search for Jay Slater in Tenerife as his mum reveals she's still hopeful.
And believe it or not, it's 8 years today since the Brexit referendum. We'll be debating in just a moment whether it's been a success or a failure.
And we knew that Taylor Swift had met Prince William and the children the other night, but now we've seen the picture as they shake it up in London.
Good morning. UEFA are to investigate after Cristiano Ronaldo was subjected to 6 separate pitch invasions by fans during Portugal's win over Turkey in Dortmund last night. Scotland stand on the brink of history when they face Hungary in Stuttgart this evening, and the ubiquitous Prince William tells England to keep believing.
Summer has finally turned up with increasingly sunny and increasingly warm weather expected over the next few days. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up shortly.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, baffled by ubiquitous.
Wonderful word, ubiquitous, isn't it?
I don't really know what it means.
Well, ubi is where in Latin, and quitus is, wherever. Maybe it's wherever. No. Ubiquitous means you can be found anywhere.
Oh,
to be found everywhere. So if Prince William is ubiquitous, it means he's all over the place.
It's almost like being omnipotent.
Oh, that's another lovely word. Favourite words.
There you go. There you go. I don't think I've got
omnipotent, yeah. It's wonderful. Favourite words.
Yeah.
Pantoufle.
Pantoufle?
Pantoufle is the French for slipper.
Is it?
Mm. Isn't that lovely? You can hear the slippers in it. Pantoufle.
Oh, that's quite nice, actually.
Wheelbarrow's another one. Favourite words.
Could be one of those mornings.
We used to have, when I was a young journalist, we used to have competitions in the newsroom every day. Didn't matter what story you were writing, you had to get the word of the day in.
Right.
And I can't remember what the word was that foiled us all. We had a real difficulty getting the word in, but it was the word for collapsible top hat. That's what it meant. There is a particular Victorian word for collapsible top hat, the sort that gentlemen used to take to the opera with them, because you could just collapse it. We used to have this, that was how we amused ourselves in the newsroom of a day, is you had to try and...
Chapeau claque or gibus.
Well, there you go. It'll be one of those.
Hat.
You try... That's it, yeah. You try getting that into a news story at the time, but that's how we used to amuse ourselves.
Gibbous moon. You get gibbous moon.
You do, don't you? No, what's that? Not a collapsible moon.
No, I think it's when it's waning.
Yeah.
Waxing and waning.
And do you know what a moon window is?
No.
In Battleground, certainly I came across the term when I was doing my radar stories in the war. It's Winston Churchill said, "I want this moved to there in the next moon window." And a moon window is when the waxing or waning of the moon benefits you but doesn't benefit the enemy.
Oh.
So in other words, you can see what you're doing but they can't, something like that.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's called a moon window. Isn't that wonderful?
There you go, the stuff you learn. Stuff you learn. Right, we're going to crack on about the election now at 8 minutes past. The Tory betting scandal. Well, it's been compared to Partygate by, wait for it, Michael Gove, which is a bit unusual. This is as the Conservative Party's chief data officer, Nick Mason, has apparently taken a leave of absence amid claims that he placed bets on the timing of the election.
Now, of course, this comes as 4 others are already being investigated by the Gambling Commission, including Laura Saunders, who's the wife of the Tories' campaign director.
Craig Williams, who's also a Conservative candidate, admitted an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place.
But it's not just the Conservatives feeling the heat this weekend. Reform leader Nigel Farage is facing down on his Ukraine-Russia comments after facing a barrage of criticism from other party leaders.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's here. Morning, Catherine. Let's kick off with Bettinggate, or whatever we're going to call it, because this, is getting worse almost day by day now.
It feels like another day, another one. Now we've got this chief data officer who has allegedly made dozens of bets, not just one, dozens of bets, under £100, but still would potentially make thousands. Now, he is saying that he hasn't done anything wrong, but he has taken a leave of absence. And he, of course, joins Craig Williams, who is currently still a Conservative candidate in the coming election. Laura Saunders, also a candidate still. Her husband, who was the campaign chief. You couldn't make this stuff up, as if they weren't in enough trouble. 20 points behind Labour, Reform nipping at their heels, increasingly going to do them huge, huge damage. This is the absolute last thing they need, and I think it is massively damaging. And I am surprised that Michael Gove has chosen to mention Partygate when so many people are still furious with them, and also make the comparison. I think it does stand, but he's really drawing attention, one episode of very bad behaviour to another, because you don't have to be very interested in politics or know much about this story to know that this is wrong, if you've got inside knowledge.
Or is he trying to imply by that it's a fuss about nothing? Because there's a lot of people who said, well, it's a bit of cake in Downing Street.
Well, yes, that's also true, but I don't think that's the line that he is taking.
Partygate means sleaze and getting away.
What it means is, one rule for us and another rule for everybody else. This is massively damaging, and the Prime Minister is clearly appalled, says he's extremely angry, but isn't, booting anyone out of the party at this stage, and he could do, and I think that's very difficult because, he came in saying accountancy, transparency, all the rest of it. But, of course, he doesn't know where this ends because we don't know how many
And it's not the sum of money, really.
Bets.
It's just the fact that they did it, if they did it.
It's the principle. Now, I suppose you could say, it doesn't necessarily mean that they knew what the date of the election was, but really, should anybody in the Conservative Party associated with them be placing these bets? Is it acceptable? I think most people will think that it isn't. So massively damaging, and you just wonder now what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah. I'll tell you what is interesting, that we've just briefly on the Farage issue. all the main party leaders sort of ganged up against him, condemned what he said. It seems unlikely it's going to dent much of their ratings in the polls at the moment, especially when they say they're really nipping at the Tories' heels. Well, certainly, looking at the response on social media and the comments from GB News viewers, there is a huge amount of support from viewers for him. And I think it is worth saying that, yeah, you know, people have been tweeting out the clip of him in the European Parliament in 2014 saying, if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts. NATO has expanded eastwards. OK, NATO are there to keep the peace. But, you know, Vladimir Putin marched into Crimea. The West did nothing. There probably are lessons to be learned. But in the middle of a general election campaign, there is no space for nuance at all. And of course, Sir Keir Starmer, Sir Ed Davey, as we've seen, and the Prime Minister are all going to go for him. They're calling him apologists for Putin. They're saying that, you know, he's unfit for office. This is disgraceful behaviour, etc. So, you know, they are very keen, of course, Rishi Sunak in particular, to do some damage to him. But, you know, a lot of Reform voters, it seems, are foursquare behind him. OK, Catherine, thank you very much indeed. OK, and of course, none of this election matters to one particular family who are looking for their lost son. The mother of missing 19-year-old Jay Slater says Spanish police have stepped up their search for her son, who disappeared in Tenerife, sadly, 7 days ago now. Well, search and rescue, police, firefighters, all combing through a vast area of the valley where Jay was last seen. Right, his mum, Debbie Duncan, spent 8 hours in a police station on Friday where the police outlined their detailed search plans. Let's talk to local journalist Cleo O'Flynn. Joins us from Tenerife now. Good to see you. What's the latest on this search, and why is it being stepped up? Have they got some specific information they're acting on?
There were a couple of flurries of rumours yesterday, and I am loath to kind of wander into the world of speculation because I don't think it helps anybody. We do know that the police are investigating one or two angles that they might not have looked at before. Some of the papers are carrying news of Jay being spotted talking to a couple of men a number of hours after he was reported to have made that call to Lucy, his friend, just after 8 o'clock on Monday morning. Now, I can't verify that. The police, my police contacts have not got back to me today. They're usually very good at confirming things with me. However, the focus of the search continues to be in the very dry, braggy, arid zone of the rural Tenno Park near Masca, which is the village where Jay was last seen on Monday morning. Obviously, the police will investigate every angle and every avenue. You can't you can't just say that they're not doing all that they can, as some people have been alleging on social media. The full forces of all the different branches of the search and rescue teams are here doing what they can to find this missing young man, because it's become something of an island-wide concern. Yes, I can imagine that everybody locally must be very worried as well. But, I mean, the implied criticism of the police has only come on social media. It's not come from anyone else, has it? No, you're absolutely right. And, it has left some of the locals slightly confused as to why certain people are calling for police from Lancashire to come along, for instance, when a couple of months ago, a missing Tenerife man in York, his family more or less said the same thing. Can the Spanish government intervene? And really the protocol is in cases like this is that police bodies keep each other informed if there is a foreign national missing in their country. But unless there are very exceptional circumstances where the knowledge of a foreign force would be needed, they're not going to bring in a foreign force because they're the ones who know the terrain and know the dangers of searching in certain parts. While it might seem like a small area to cover, in fact, there are so many hidden gulfs and ravines and gullies, and one turn can take you off a path or leave you sliding down a shaly mountainside. I think this is best left in the hands of those who work and live here. Yeah, well, that's probably a very good point. Cleo, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. You're welcome.
Right, well, it's, nearly 13 minutes past 8. Shall we have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning? And there's a yellow heat health alert that's been issued for most of England, as temperatures apparently will soar to some 30 degrees across the country today. The alert will come into force apparently tomorrow morning, right through till Thursday afternoon, with warnings over significant impacts on the health and social care sector.
There are significant delays at Manchester Airport this morning. If you're thinking of heading there, if you are planning on going away, there's been a power cut. Significant number of flights from Terminals 1 and 2 are delayed or cancelled. Manchester Airport has said that all travellers need to check with their airline before they head out.
And the Prince of Wales has thanked Taylor Swift for a great concert as he shared a photo of the pop superstar taking a selfie with him and his children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte. Swift posted her own selfie then with Prince William, George and Charlotte alongside her boyfriend, the NFL star Travis Kelce.
Now, hopefully you enjoyed a good day yesterday. It should be nice today and even warmer in the week to come. Let's get all the details from Aidan.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist, and the far northwest of Scotland, some low cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, the weather looks good. It is the final week, however, to see how you could win our summer giveaway. That's £15,000 in cash, tax-free, and a whole host of treats. Lines close, though, at 5 p.m. on Friday, so make sure you don't miss out. Here are the details you need.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, cash. Text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you now. This will get you going. It's 8 years to the day since the Brexit referendum, so we're asking next, has it been a success or a failure?
That's coming up next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Plenty of mixers, plenty of lovely gin.
Yes.
What have you got here for us? Just explain what you've brought in.
So today I'm going to be presenting the Cotswolds Dry Gin and the Cotswolds Wildflower Gin.
Ooh.
So the first one that was introduced into our market was the Cotswolds Dry Gin. Now we have 9 different types of botanicals. We introduce into our pot still. We introduce obviously juniper berries because it's a London Dry. Angelica roots and coriander seeds, giving it that little limey flavour. Also, cardamom seeds, then black peppercorn, giving it a little spice.
Ooh.
And then the part that is more interesting that regards to the pouring, we have the grapefruit peel and the lime peel. We're going to start with the Cotswolds Dry, okay? So the first one introduced.
So Ellie was taking the mick out of me this morning because I said my favourite gin was, what is it, pink lemonade?
You like a pink gin and lemonade, yes.
You called me, I'm going to say what you said. You said that's a bit girly.
As you see, it turned into cloudy. Those are the oils of the spices because we don't filter it. Our gin is completely unfiltered.
Got
okay?
it.
I love this. It's 11:52. It's never too early. Cheers.
Cheers.
And would you have any, this sounds very juvenile, would you have any snacks with gin? Or does it ruin it?
Olives.
You can tell your culture.
It depends on how you're drinking it and where you are, like what you're actually going to do with it. But you can have pretty much all sorts. As long as it stays on the salty side, that's what I would go for personally.
A salty snack.
Yeah, that's what I would go for.
So olives, would you say, is that a good choice, or crisps, nuts?
They're quite salty olives, aren't they?
It depends on your taste, really. Like personally, I wouldn't go for it, but I have seen. And the culture behind gin is drastically increased over the years. The flavours are all different.
That's really good.
Exactly. You see what I mean?
Oh, very nice.
Like that zesty, floral kind of flavour coming through. They're absolutely stunning, aren't they?
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Well, now we're going to debate something which is banned in my household. I have to actually ban the word Brexit because it causes family rifts. But believe it or not, it is actually 8 years now, today, since the Brexit referendum.
Well, back in 2016, 33 million votes were cast, 17.4 million voting to leave, 16.1 million voting to remain.
Oh, yes. After several delays, the UK officially left the EU on the 31st of January 2020.
Right, so was it a success or a failure? Or is it actually too early to tell? Let's talk to former Labour Minister of State for Europe, Dennis McShane, and former leader of UKIP, Henry Bolton. Good to see you both this morning. Look, can I start with you, Dennis, on this one? Because, look, if your side were to be believed, then, 8 years on from all of this, we would have been in absolute chaos. Now, look, there's an argument to say we're in a bit of chaos, but it's not to do with Brexit.
No, I wrote a book in 2014 called Brexit, Why Britain Will Leave Europe. I couldn't get anybody to believe me. I couldn't get my party to believe me. I couldn't get the government to believe me. Friends in the Foreign Office who I'd worked for a number of years, business, CBI, I went to see them all, said, guys, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to happen unless you take it seriously. Oh, don't be silly, Dennis. Oh, it'll be all right on the night. Oh, it'll be all right on the day. And on the very day, the morning, there's a great friend of mine, Professor Adam Menon, who runs the biggest European think tank, and I said to him, with all at the BBC, what's the vote going to be today, Alan? He says, oh, Dennis, I know the English. They'll bottle it. They won't dare leave. I couldn't believe how stupid my country was. Every other country in Europe that had had a referendum on an aspect of Europe had voted no to Europe. We thought we were going to be the exception. OK, over and done with now. The mess of leaving, nobody really worked out how to leave. There was no actual plan. We ad hoc'd with weirdos like Dominic Cummings and my old friend David Frost, who used to work for me at the Foreign Office advising Boris Johnson. Suddenly David became anti-European. Boris himself, I mean, you know, he's a wonderful chancellor. I love him. But the idea I'd put him in charge of a serious negotiation, no thanks. So we are. And you know, every economic indicator says it's not working well. I mean, I said in my book, we're a big, mature G7 economy. We're not going to collapse overnight. That's just childish nonsense. But we just will gradually get a bit weaker, a bit poorer. Our cities will get more run down. The investment will not come in as fast as once it did. And that has happened. I mean, the London Stock Exchange is now a shadow of what it was. That's just one tiny little economic example.
Well, Henry Bolton, I mean, Brexit has been done, as it says there on the on that huge machine. Get Brexit done. It has been done, but has it been done in the way it should have? Has it been a successful Brexit?
Oh, that's two different questions there, Anne. And good morning, everybody. Brexit actually in itself delivered the only thing that it could do, which was a great degree of independence in law, government and public administration to make bespoke decisions about the challenges and opportunities that face us as a nation. Now, has it been, has the outcome so far been disappointing? Yes, I'd say largely it is. But I'll take a little bit of issue with Dennis. I'm sorry, Dennis, I love debating with you. But the reality is that in the last quarter, the UK GDP grew higher than any other G7 nation, well, alongside Canada at 0.6%. We are one of only 3 countries that has a tech sector that is valued at over $1 trillion. We are the 4th largest exporter in the world. That's money coming into us, second only to China, the United States and Germany. So things not all the economic indicators are bad. Where we have failed is Brexit gave us control, but because, as Dennis absolutely rightly says, there was no vision, there was no plan on the part of any Brexiteer leader as to what should happen next. And so there was this long sort of pregnant pause. There still is. People still scratching their heads, and you have these ad hoc responses. So although we were given control, we haven't actually really taken control because there's not that vision yet to drive it, that sort of aspirational vision. A good example also of where it's been disappointing is fisheries. We've actually now, it's not sort of people don't sort of really recognise it, but we now have a fishing industry that has got a catch worth £132 million more than it would have been if we stayed in the European Union. Now, that's not a huge amount of money. It would be to you and I, but sort of on the sort of level of nation states, it's not. But the thing is that whilst we're gaining for the fishing industry in that respect, our own domestic policy is tying a hand behind or an arm behind the backs of fishermen by introducing more and more regulation and requirements in terms of licensing the boats and so on, which are absolutely unnecessary. It's our own bureaucratic system now imposing constraints that mean that we're not exploiting the opportunities of Brexit more. It's madness. And it all comes down to what Dennis says: lack of vision, lack of plan, and lack of leadership on this particular issue, I think.
Well, Henry, perhaps before we die, we might agree. It actually, Britain for 500, 600, 700, 800 years has been a nation trading through treaties with other countries. We've always wanted to work legally with other countries to get access. We tore all that up, and we don't know how to replace it. I think the big difference soon will be that it reminds me enormously, well, you and I are too young to remember it, Henry, but prohibition in the United States. Everybody said that would be a miracle cure. It was legislated in 1917, in the Constitution in 1920, and then was in operation all during the 1920s and early 1930s in America. It was a disaster, telling the Americans they couldn't have a glass of beer, telling British delicatessen owners they've got to start sourcing everything they sell for their customers who are used to continental foods with nice English carrots and ham. It's just nonsense. It's never been our country.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, let me put this to you, Henry, because before Dennis said it was childish to say that we'd see an overnight collapse if we pulled out of the EU. It's actually quite childish, isn't it, to say, well, it's going to be an overnight success. Someone just the other day in the papers, I can't think who it was saying, this is a 10 to 20-year plan to make this work.
If not longer, I think.
How long, Henry? How long, Henry? 50 years?
Well, it's not about it's not really about the length of time, I would argue. Look, the principle here is, do we as a nation state want, as I said at the beginning, the independence in law, government and public administration to make our own decisions about the opportunities and challenges facing us? Are we big enough and grown up enough to take on that responsibility? And the answer for me is yes. And that's almost a sort of idealistic, or not idealistic, it's a point of principle that we should be free to be able to do that. And what I would say is that it absolutely, despite what people say, has not been a disaster. There are a lot of good indicators, but the thing is that as time progresses, we will, all of us, be unable to really determine whether or not this has been, in every single area of public life and sort of administration and economy, a good thing or not. The point is that it has not been a disaster. We are growing. And Dennis said that the stock exchange is a mess. Well, we've just overtaken the French, stock exchange as the largest in Europe. So things are not bad. Things are even improving. We are outstripping all of the economies of Europe apart from the Germans. So what has been so disastrous? Nothing. It is only with time that we will sort of grow and fill this role of taking responsibility for ourselves. And I think
so. You won't be around to see it, Dennis.
Well, I'm sure in 1,000 years' time we'll have this wonderful Brexit success. Now, I just think this is daft. We're not exporting more cars. We're not making new cars. We're not getting more cars setting up here. We're not getting new companies coming in to set up here. We're stopping all our young people, musicians, artists, ski teachers, au pairs who are working in Europe. We're a very, very you laugh at it. You laugh at it, but no. Of course it's true. It's true. I don't know, Henry. Henry, it is entirely true. I've got 2 daughters now with young children. They grew up with the help of au pairs. Everybody grew up with the help of au pairs. You Tories are blocked. Well, good for you. Well, that might explain a few things now in a sweetest way. But we are simply a much smaller, slightly more impoverished country. And the big difference is that, if I just may finish, just quickly, assuming Sir Keir Starmer becomes PM, up to now, Rishi Sunak and all of the Brexit-era disastrous PMs, Truss and the other one, Boris Johnson, have just dodged answering questions in Europe. It's going to come back onto the agenda, Henry, one way or the other.
All right, Dennis.
And we will have to have an answer. You don't. What? I do.
All right, look, Dennis.
See, I told you if we had the word Brexit on the programme, that would happen.
Good to see you both. I've got to be perfectly honest. I don't think ski instructors and au pairs are going to be something. It means nothing to me.
It's lots of people who do lots of different jobs.
Emily Carver, one of your most prominent presenters, got an international ski ranking. Ask her about being a big international British skier. That's I think just killed. Brexit has killed.
Well, I think, I don't think that's going to have a huge impact on our economy, to be fair. But there you go. We've got the sport with Aidan McGee coming up.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Right, let's have some serious talk now about sport. Here's Aidan. Hi.
Morning again. Now, the reason I used ubiquitous
here we go.
in the last hour,
yes.
And, did pique my interest when I walked out the doors, because Prince William is everywhere.
Yes, he is.
So, he's with Taylor Swift, as we saw, but he was also in the dressing room.
Oh, was he?
In Denmark, in Germany last week after the Denmark game.
Well, he is president of
the FA, yeah.
FA.
So I think with the players feeling at quite a low ebb, because they will know that they didn't play well against Denmark. This is the England players I'm talking about, of course. And they see someone from the FA sees Prince William milling about. Well, it stands to reason they probably try and get him into the dressing room, see if he can give the players a pep talk. That's going to focus their minds and maybe even distract them from what they've just underachieved, if you like, if they see one of the most famous people in the world. Is he the most famous person in the world? He's got to be in the top 10, isn't he?
Oh, yes. Oh, he's top 5, I would have thought.
I mean, that's going to distract you from a bad performance if you get him going in there. And Adam Wharton, who's
unless it was off with your heads if you don't do better.
Yeah, I know. That's been known to happen.
I mean, there were
some owners in the Premier League are not averse to that.
There were some shots of him looking quite displeased and disappointed as he was sort of clapping.
Yeah, not in common with the rest of us, I would suggest. But he went in there and he said, "Listen, it's only 2 games gone. You've got 4 points. Let's not be too downhearted about it. It's still in a good position to qualify." And it was Adam Wharton who lifted the lid on these revelations. He's on the periphery of the team. He could play today, actually. It's time when maybe he was given a go alongside Declan Rice in midfield. But yeah, they're in action on Tuesday against Slovenia. Qualification pretty much assured, but nice to receive some words of support from Prince William.
The big game is tonight with Scotland, 8 o'clock, yeah?
8 o'clock, yeah, in Stuttgart. And Scotland, as we mentioned a few times now, put themselves in a position where they can achieve history. Now, last week, of course, it was all downbeat. It was 5-1 against Germany. Now, I should caveat all this by saying that conceding 5 goals against Germany could yet prove decisive because the goal difference might count against them. So what they're hoping for is that they win tonight, Scotland. Yeah. They get to 4 points. They become one of the 4 best third-place teams out of the 8 groups. They won't find out, though, if they're qualified. They could have this glorious win tonight, but they're not certain of going through until Wednesday, when all the third matches in the groups are completed. So they won't find out their fate until Wednesday. So it's going to be a bit of a wait, but the least they can do in the meantime is try and win that game. If you'd said to them this time last week, you're going into the last game with qualification pretty much in your hands, you're up against a team that's lost their first 2 matches and are beatable, if not, they're no mugs, certainly not, then I think they would have taken that. In fact, I think they would have bitten your hand off.
Yeah. Well, good on them.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, 8 o'clock tonight, that is.
Yeah, I'm going to watch that. It'd be good. Oh, actually, no, I can't.
No.
Why?
I'm going to that hustings.
Oh, really?
I'm going to a
Tonight?
hustings tonight, yeah.
You're on a programme in the morning talking politics.
Yeah.
And you're going to go voluntarily tonight to a hustings.
Yeah, but it's local candidates, isn't it? So you can sit down and just watch
But it has captured, the Euros has captured your imagination a bit more than football.
Oh, yeah. It's nice to watch England.
He's been challenging my opinions, I've never known.
It's appalling. What sort of a programme is this?
I know.
Can we talk Wimbledon?
Yes, we can.
We've got two guys, former absolute champions, hoping to play in Wimbledon, but they've both had recent surgery.
You see this quite often. I think there's a case of they want to hang on a little bit longer. Djokovic, in his case, he's won 25 Grand Slams now. He wants to try and extend that if he possibly can, just to cement his position at the top of the sport. And he said that despite undergoing knee surgery 17 days ago in Paris, which forced him to withdraw from the French Open earlier than planned, he is going to take his chances and come to the All England Club, practice this week, see how the knee feels. And that must be serious surgery. Any surgery must be serious. Yes. It's invasive. And so he's going to take his chances and see how he feels in the middle of the week, when I think there's a deadline by which time he has to let Wimbledon know, the organisers know, if he's going to compete, and then line up on July the 1st. Yeah. He may even be given a July the 2nd start, just to give him that extra 24 hours of grace. But he's got to keep an eye on things, certainly.
You've got 20 seconds to tell us about Ronaldo.
Yeah, 6 pitch invasions of people of various ages looking for selfies. His manager has said that that's a serious security breach. What happens when it's not selfies and maybe it's something more serious? It could be a knife, it could be an acid attack. Who knows? These players are so high profile now that they could be target for anybody. It needs to be stamped out.
Yeah, they've got to find a way to do it.
All right, Aidan, thank you very much
indeed. Good to see you this weekend.
We'll see you soon.
Yep, and we'll be back in a couple of moments with the newspapers.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today we've got 2 fantastic individuals who have invented a teddy bear to help children who are suffering with mental health.
Yes, so Lynn and Samantha Crilly came up with the idea for the TroubleMuncher toy following Samantha's own battle with an eating disorder and OCD.
Yes, the teddy comes with a notepad and encourages its owners to write down what's troubling them, and then they can pop the note into the rucksack on the bear's back.
I struggled with mental health most of my life, actually. And, oh, no, it's fine. I've got one. I feel quite sorry for you. But and one thing I always did was message my mum, and it was a thought disassociation kind of technique. I would message you, even now, I message you thoughts that come into my mind, but massively when I was younger. And I thought, what happens if you're younger and you don't have this?
Yeah, and I think in today's technology-fueled world, I think we go back to basics, and it just helps them to process by writing it down. Everything's so instant these days.
So it's like an indirect way of telling your parents how you're feeling, what you're going through. Such a great idea. What's the feedback been from parents who have got a TroubleMuncher for their kids? What you got any stories?
It's been really good. In one household, he sits on the kitchen side, and I think during the day, the parents, the children put their worries in or at night, and then they know that their parents will look at it during the day. And it's gone into some schools as well.
You'd imagine you'd want one of these TroubleMunchers in every classroom and in every school up and down the country, because children who are being bullied, for example, who feel like they can't tell their parents, they're too embarrassed to talk about it. This is such an important tool, isn't it, for children to communicate that?
Yeah, well, you were saying Mum's a mental health counsellor, and you had a young child who had Snapchat AI. So you talk to an AI in Snapchat, and that's what they talk to now.
The People's Channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:43, let's see what's in the papers then. With Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones. Morning, you two. Let's have the Sunday Times, should we, Emma, and the betting scandal, Betgate?
Yeah, this is now the fourth or fifth if you include somebody else's wife, but this is now the fourth sort of insider within the top Tory ranks to be investigated. And you just start to think, and this is over betting over the potential date of the general election, you start to think this is quite a bizarre situation. Did these people not realise that they weren't, whether or not they had privileged information, whether or not they have or haven't done anything wrong, we have to, there is a presumption of innocence. Of course, they are allegations, they are being investigated. My interest is, does this damage Rishi Sunak or not really at this stage? I mean, is he already he's so wounded already that I don't think it's going to do that much damage.
I don't know. If you were dithering, if you were thinking, I don't know whether I like these Tories anymore.
I suppose the argument would be that he's not really running a tight ship, that they're not particularly scared of him.
That he's surrounded by
they're not particularly worried about discipline.
Really don't get it, that you don't do this.
Yeah.
But I guess, we knew it wasn't a tight ship anyway. The different leaders we've had and challenges and all the rest of it.
Mark Gove was talking about comparing it to Partygate. I don't think this is as bad as Partygate, but it shows this sort of do as I say, not as I do attitude. And one of the interesting things about this is bookmakers know that inside people will try and place these sort of bets. So they stop you placing any more than sort of 10 or 20 quid on these sort of outcomes anyway. And so these individuals who are on allegedly made these offences, but they will be on pretty good salaries. They're risking it all for very little financial reward.
Just for a bit of fun.
Yeah, it shows again that they're not really in touch. They're not scared of ill discipline. That there's a sort of
What I really want to know is, did they all get the date right? And that doesn't seem to... I can't find that in any of the papers. Did they get the date right? Did they say July the 4th? But obviously Ladbrokes are not going to kind of release that.
That would be hilarious if they...
No, we were told that one of them, I don't know which one, had placed several bets on several dates.
So it's not as though they knew the date and went and put it on
not the exact date, but certainly around this time.
That's absolutely fascinating. But, I mean, it's just obvious to anybody, let alone someone within the inner echelons, it's obvious to anyone that you can't go and do that. You can't do that. It's like sort of shorting before in investment terms.
Yeah. Mail Online, Andy, got a story about a Bulgarian gang member who says British prison was like a holiday.
Yeah, so this is one of the big stories of the year. Not this particular story, but the big story that this gang made off with £54 million. A Bulgarian gang running out of a shop in Wood Green, North London. They made off with £54 million by making up fake IDs to claim universal credit. They made up 6,000 people of universal credit, made off with all this money. They're only caught because a police officer in a Bulgarian village, as I understand it, flagged up that this village suddenly had all of this millions of pounds washing through it, and suddenly these giant houses appearing. One of the individuals that was involved, Svetlana Todorova, she only got 3 years, I think, for her part in the case, but she's been boasting to Bulgarian media about how easy life in British prisons is. Says it's like a spa. You sit there getting haircuts, manicures. She's done an art class. She's been going to the gym every day. And again, it's not just justice not being seen to be served. It's justice not being served.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think she's probably just giving it all that.
A bit of boasting.
Yes.
Because I know from other work that I do, quite a number of people have been in prison, and it isn't. It's not like that.
Yeah.
And I've been in a lot of prisons, and it's not like that.
I think one of the other things as well is with so few prison officers that we have now, that you almost have to have an easier prison system to sort of placate prisoners, because there's no way of keeping them under control. I was speaking to like you are, work with prisons as well, and I was speaking to a prison officer who said he sometimes looks after 200 prisoners almost on his own.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have this sort of situation that you almost have to placate people to just keep them under control.
Do need more.
But haircuts and manicures wouldn't be provided by the states. They're much more likely to be provided by the inmates, sort of setting it up themselves.
The lags.
Right, you can tell I've been working at
very
good.
Emma, tell us about how young workers feel about showing up late to work.
Well, what are you guys like about timing? What's late for you? If you're meeting a friend, what's late?
Yeah, well, you want to be on time.
I think you want to be on time.
I think you want to be on time. And the great thing about mobile phones is you can, if you're going to be late for a good reason...
Well, after mobiles, you can say, sorry, I'm running late, I'm running late. In the old days, you just turn up, because you couldn't ring them. Anyway, about half of 16 to 26-year-olds believe that 5 to 10 minutes late is on time. They believe that that's punctual. So this is Generation Z. This is the generation who admitted recently that 93% of them had just not turned up to job interviews.
Oh, my word.
So it's this whole thing about... I mean, I think that you turn up 5 minutes early for something.
Yeah.
If it's work, you definitely turn up early and you prepare. But even meeting friends, I think you aim to get there a little bit early. But apparently 5 to 10 minutes late is punctual, which is really, really lax.
Because why name a time if you're going to always just think 10 minutes
Well, it's a disorder. They've got time blindness, and it's part of their condition. ADD, attention deficit disorder, it's all part of one of these neurological conditions. So you know this growing thing about everybody's ADHD, everybody's ADD, everybody's on the spectrum, So time blindness is like a thing. They can't quite cope with time and being on time, despite the fact that they have phones, they have a clock with them effectively the whole time.
Do we have to treat them on the NHS now?
Well, there you go.
Time
and now we wonder why we can't treat proper conditions like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder properly when everybody has a condition.
I mean, turning up on time, that's about discipline and self-discipline, isn't it?
It is
it's not about having a disorder.
It's not a disorder. It's about building in contingencies and building in the bus being late or you're getting a puncture on your tyre or whatever. I don't know. I really despair. It's such a bore to say, I despair of Generation Z.
On the other hand,
that is poor.
There's an opposite problem there. So I've got a friend who insists on being at least an hour early for everything.
Oh, no.
And that drives me bonkers. There's plenty of time to get there, but she wants to add in an hour or so.
That's the sort of anxiety thing, I think. My mum will turn up at the airport 6 hours early and you just think, oh, for goodness sake.
I've got a sliding scale with it, where if I'm meeting a group of friends in the pub, it's OK to be sort of 10 minutes late, because they're not going to miss me anyway. But if it's somebody stood there on their own in the rain, I'll definitely be on time.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair enough.
It's basic manners.
But it probably costs us a lot of money, this 10 minutes late everywhere in the economy.
And also, if that's your late measure, then it becomes later and later, because if you've already measured it 10 minutes after. Anyway.
Quite.
Yeah.
Yes, it is troublesome.
Andy, what's this in the Observer? Because we are reliant on, if we have a Labour government, on their growth plan. It's doomed, according to the Observer.
Yeah, funnily enough, the Observer have done a poll which finds that we'd be financially better off if we went back to the EU. I mean, which is surprise from the Observer.
62% of people in the poll said Brexit was a bad idea, and I was like, oh, is this the Observer?
Yeah, quite. Of 2,000 people they spoke to as well, so that's entirely represented the UK. But a Labour government under Keir Starmer will fail to maximise the UK's economic growth. He won't be able to do all the things he says he wants to do unless we rejoin the EU.
So are they trying to push him into rejoining joining programme.
It's a little bit of a poke. Keir Starmer has been pretty on the front foot about this, saying he's not rejoining. He did a piece in the Express just to underline that point a year ago, saying we're definitely not rejoining. I think it's actually quite interesting.
I don't think they'd have us.
Well, quite.
To be honest, and certainly not unless we join the euro. That'd be a stipulation.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's also it's not just rejoining the EU version that we left. It's what place we'd have in the EU now if we rejoin.
And also, I don't think Keir Starmer wants to reopen all of those wounds in the first 5 years. Certainly.
No.
But can we talk about polls? Has anyone been polled yet? I still haven't been polled.
No, I haven't.
I mean, we keep talking about these polls, and I keep thinking, who are they polling?
Yeah,
I know they have their they have their groups.
They have their groups and things, yeah.
I've worked at a lot of different national newspapers. I can tell you pretty much every national newspaper editor I've ever worked for, if you get presented with a poll of less than 2,000 people that's done by a consumer company about, I don't know, orange juice or breakfast cereal, they absolutely won't touch it. Yeah, if it's an election poll of 1,100 people, it's all front-page news. Yeah. And I find that really interesting that and this is why we keep getting so much wrong when it comes to Brexit, when it comes to America and Donald Trump getting in.
It's why they're
so blindsided.
But it's why these MRP polls now that have got like 25,000 in them or whatever, at least
a bit more representative.
I know, but I still haven't been polled.
But have you ever been focus grouped?
No.
I mean, ideas in all sorts of companies are put out to a focus group. I've never been on a focus group.
Yeah, I got an email about being on some sort of thing like that, actually, only last week. But, of course, you've got to say that I'm a journalist. So therefore you can't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it.
No. I wouldn't want to anyway.
You just want to be asked.
I wouldn't want to. When I did jury service, I ended up sort of taking control and telling everybody what, it's not a good thing. I don't think it's... I just sort of said, well, look, guys, we can't sit here for the next 3 days. Let's have a da-da-da-da-da. And people are just sort of, this is quite fun. You can't dodge jury service forever, can you?
In prison because of you.
Someone's in prison because he attacked his wife with a knife. Frankly.
Well,
fair enough, yes. No, sorry, not fair enough that he did it, fair enough that he's jailed. Right, and then we've...
30 seconds left.
Well, it's Taylor Swift. We've got to end with Taylor Swift.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just really sad that Catherine wasn't there. I know, I saw that photo of William looking really happy, and it was a lovely photo, wasn't it, with Charlotte and George. I just felt sad that, she can't go to that.
I thought exactly the same, and I thought, yes, but it's a big... It's a huge effort going to a concert.
Oh, of course.
That's loud and noisy, and you're expected to dance and smile all the way through it as well.
Of course. But it's just another photo that we've seen recently where she's not, and William's obviously out and about with the kids and still doing stuff with them. And
she's at home with little Louis.
Yeah, she's resting.
Well, it was his birthday treat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His birthday. Right, it's been good to see you both this morning.
Thank
you very much indeed.
Much. Thanks.
Get the check on the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely it's beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist, and the far northwest of Scotland, some low cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Theatres and drama schools are being offered plus-size inclusivity training. Come on, seriously, is this really a thing? In order to tackle fat phobia, to apparently make the theatre more inclusive for bigger bodies, a lady called Ruth Ann Phillips, who is a plus-size theatre director, she's behind the drive. Now, apparently, her own research, so it's not exactly independent, showed that 9 out of 10 respondents should have training on size inclusion. Ruth is also the co-founder of Inclusion Collective, which is an organisation that provides training in creative well-being, body positivity and inclusive movement. Her website contains resources on fat activism, advocacy for the rights and dignity of fat people, combating discrimination and the body-conscious scale. This is actually about health. Ruth is conflating the two. Professor Carol Sikora, a consultant oncologist, said normalising obesity has become fashionable in advertising and the media, simply to sell stuff. But it's got nothing to do with celebrating diversity. Nobody needs to be fat. It's like encouraging risky behaviours such as smoking, driving after a boog's up, or lying like a lobster on the beach in the sun. A balanced diet and lots of exercise are the cornerstones of a healthy lifestyle. He went on to say, how can anybody possibly justify these projects? Plus-size inclusivity training, please bring back common sense. Well, exactly. I'm for equal opportunity and for giving people credit based on merit and what they bring to the table, even if it is food. Only joking. That's where the way to my heart is through my gut. I'm looking for a man that can cook. But in truth, being obese can be dangerous. And whilst I absolutely agree you should love what God gave you, obesity is the biggest killer and costs the health service a fortune. People come in all shapes and sizes, and it's a wonderful thing. But to conflate body positivity with obesity is very dangerous.
The People's Channel.
Oh, good morning. Oh, we're back a little bit early. We've got 20 seconds till 9 o'clock, but we're very nearly there. We're very nearly there. It's Sunday, the 23rd of June. Today, is it the new Partygate? Another Conservative campaigner takes a leave of absence as the election betting scandal grows.
Yes, there's Rishi Sunak, Sir Keir Starmer and Sir Ed Davey teaming up, if you like, to condemn Nigel Farage as he faces the heat over his comments about Russia and Ukraine.
Spanish police are intensifying the search for Jay Slater in Tenerife, but his mum says she's still hopeful.
Summer has finally turned up with increasingly sunny and increasingly warm weather expected over the next few days. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up shortly.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
So we're talking about Brexit in the last hour, and you thought, well, I thought that was over. We thought Partygate was over as well. But apparently it's sort of not, according to Michael Gove, in that he's calling this new Tory betting scandal Partygate, in effect, which is
toxic word, really.
Anyway, it's all down to the latest news, which is the Conservative Party's Chief Data Officer, Nick Mason, taking a leave of absence amid claims, at least, that he placed bets on the timing of the election.
Now, of course, this comes as 4 others are being investigated by the Gambling Commission. That includes Laura Saunders, who's the wife of the Tories' campaign director.
Craig Williams, another Conservative candidate, has also admitted to an error of judgment after placing a bet on when the election would take place.
And, of course, it's not just the Conservatives feeling the heat this weekend. The Reform leader, Nigel Farage, is facing down on his Ukraine-Russia comments after having an absolute barrage of criticism from other party leaders.
All right, well, all this means it's going to be an exciting Camilla Tominey show at 9:30 this morning. And, of course, she's here to give us a preview. Good morning.
Lovely to see you in this studio, by the way.
Yes,
It's great to be together in the flesh.
It is. What do you make of all of this?
The betting thing. I mean, Michael Gove, he's not standing in Surrey Heath. He's off, so therefore he probably feels like he can just throw caution to the wind. It's not particularly helpful, is it, for Rishi Sunak, for him to be likening this to Partygate, even though it does seem like that.
we were all thinking it.
We were all thinking it, and he makes the very good point in his interview with the Sunday Times that the trouble is it kind of betrays a complete lack of seriousness by the people around Rishi Sunak. Why would you even, when you're 20 points behind in the polls and you're fighting for your electoral life, be sort of thinking about placing bets on election dates? It's like that's the last thing that should be on your mind, how I should allegedly financially benefit from the timing of the election. And in the same vein, it does remind us of Partygate because, again, that spoke to a lack of seriousness about people inside government following their own rules. So, I mean, yet another person now embroiled in this scandal is astonishing, isn't it? And it just will now run and run because...
well, and the issue with it is, as I say, it's accusations at the moment, and that's as far as it goes. It's got to be looked at and investigated. However, it's the mud sticking as far as the Prime Minister's concerned, isn't it?
He looked furious when he was asked about it in the debate last week.
Didn't he?
And he would be, wouldn't he? I mean, and also imagine all of the Tories out on the doorstep at the moment, this weekend, knocking on doors, trying to shore up support. They haven't done anything wrong, and they're now having to face questions from the electorate on top of the questions they already faced because of them being so far behind in the polls and the threat
Doesn't
from
it
reform.
remind you of other times we've seen, I think particularly of Margaret Thatcher at the end of her long reign? All her ministers seemed to be having affairs. You know, there were sleazy scandals, one by one. You know, every day there was a different one in the newspapers. And it's almost as though this is happening to Rishi Sunak. Every day it gets worse.
It feels a bit
People are letting him down now.
I know. But then it's kind of like a vicious cycle, isn't it? I mean, story piles on, story piles on, story piles on another story. It's like, God, what could go wrong next? I was saying last week, like, is the Prime Minister going to drop a baby on its head on the campaign trail? It's like a disaster. Having said that, when you speak to Tories, they are indicating that it's more encouraging on the doorstep than the polls suggest. It's just the polls aren't moving, which then begs the question, is there that phenomenon of shy conservatism going on, both in terms of people talking to pollsters and not being honest about who they're going to vote for? Bearing in mind, postal votes have already landed on people's doorsteps. So some of them have already voted, some of them will be voting this week ahead of the ballot. On the 4th, I don't know. I'm going to be asking Home Secretary James Cleverly about this. He's got an attack on Labour in the front of the Sunday Telegraph, it is. He's written an op-ed saying Labour are going to let in 100,000 more illegal migrants because they're going to sign up to that EU deal on how to deal with migrants across the bloc. So I'm going to be questioning him about that. And, of course, the betting scandal. Bridget Phillipson is coming into the studio. She's the woman who wants to be the next Education Secretary. So, again, I shall not cease in my grilling of Labour about these VAT plans for private schools and whether it will spark an exodus into the state sector. And we talked about polling. We've got some exclusive GB News polling, which Scarlett Maguire of JL Partners is going to be bringing us about the state of play between the parties. And also, crucially, after the Russia comments, although the polling would have been done before the Nick Robinson interview, but she's going to give us an assessment of how Farage is doing and, indeed, Reform and where they might end up with the vote share.
But I'll tell you what's interesting. People who are Reform supporters who've been messaging in this morning, well, they're doubling down on all of this and they're saying, well, look, Nigel's daring to say something different, daring to speak the truth in their view. I mean, you have to say, when you look at it all in context of that interview and in context of watching what he said in 2014, it is a lot more nuanced. It makes a lot more sense when you look at the whole thing And then when you add on that he says, yes, but Putin is to blame, what he did was a despicable action.
But he's both kind of clarified and doubled down today. He's clarified in saying, look, I thought Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine, but at the same time, in the background, and he's referring to this idea that the EU was constantly flirting with the idea of giving Ukraine both EU membership and NATO membership, which, as I've just been discussing with Michael Portillo out there, who's coming on at 11, everyone does appreciate what NATO membership means. That means that in the event of an invasion, the rest of the Western world takes on Russia directly and uses any means necessary to defeat Putin, which might seem... But the point was, up until the point of the invasion, that hadn't happened. It had been discussed, but it hadn't actually happened. The other question for Farage is, OK, Reform supporters who probably don't want to see any wrong in Farage and therefore will be supportive of anything he says, might be backing him. But in order for Reform to get a bigger vote share, he's got to be appealing to moderate Conservatives as well. If he wants the destruction of the Conservative Party...
Yes, he's got to appeal.
He's going to be putting off people who are like, hang on a minute, in the interests of fairness, I'm just interested in fairness here, Putin invading another country was completely wrong, and if you're going to in any way try and excuse that, then you're either an appeaser or an apologist for Putin. And that will be a fairly conventional view among a lot of righties.
Yeah, but are you talking to Reform today?
Yes, we've got Ben Habib coming on, the Deputy Reform leader, so I'll be asking him all of these questions, whether he thinks it was politically astute for Farage to have come out with this, what the response has been from Reform. I'm also going to be asking Habib himself. I mean, he said some fairly interesting things in the past about channel migrants and whether it was all OK if their dinghies sank, that they drowned in the channel. So I'll just be asking him to perhaps clarify some of those comments and some of the...
At this stage in the election, I mean, you are getting some fairly acerbic comments being made, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, just what you've said there is enough to get another debate going, and it keeps the name of Reform up there. And also, we are talking about Ukraine, Russia, we're talking about these issues which are important.
And also, the point is people might not like robust questioning of Reform because they like Farage and they like Habib, but as journalists on this channel, everybody that's going to come into the studio will be treated robustly so that we can have these debates. That's why we're not like other channels, because we're quite willing to have an open forum of discussion without pointing fingers and saying, if you don't agree with me, then you're a bigot. So everyone that comes in today, or I get down the line, will just be asked straight questions and we will expect some straight answers as ever.
Oh, well, expecting straight answers. I mean, that would be nice.
Wouldn't that be a refreshing change, Stephen?
Sometimes
live in hope.
Sometimes you just listen to see in what way they're not going to answer a question this time.
Well, I know. To be fair to him, Farage usually answers straight. And that's why he has that appeal. Other politicians could perhaps learn from him. Just say what you think. Maybe there's also an admiration of honesty, even if people don't agree with the premise of what he's saying.
Yeah. That's fair enough, isn't it, actually, I think?
But we'll see.
We'll see.
Cost for straight answers.
I do find fascinating what you said about maybe that the pollsters are getting a lot of people who might still vote Tory are almost too ashamed to say so.
Yeah, they won't be telling their friends, let alone the pollsters.
Exactly, because it invites, fury from some people if you say,
Does it? I don't know. In that now, it's sort of split between, I know, in my sort of group of people, well, up and down the country, people saying, oh, no, I'm going to stick with the devil I know and vote Tory. Others saying, well, I'm too scared to vote Labour, which is because they sort of think there's going to be this influx of the left. Yeah. And Angela Rayner is a key point for a lot of them on that one. Yeah. I say, but those people who say around voting Reform, of course, are very... It's the only party where there's any enthusiasm.
People are proudly saying that they're voting Reform. But then you've got other Tories, in inverted commas, saying, I'm absolutely not voting for them. The other interesting thing, and Bridget Phillipson, I think, will speak to this, Labour are now worried that all of this talk of a supermajority means that Labour supporters will go, well, I don't need to bother. Yeah. And that their turnout will be low, which could affect things. And also in the papers today is the threat from independents to the Labour vote. And I think a Muslim organisation has said that the Muslim vote in a lot of Labour constituencies could swing it. And bear in mind, there are often rival candidates to Labour because they don't think they've been strong enough on the Gaza issue, standing against Labour, and therefore could split that vote on the left and cause real problems. I mean, all of the MRP polling suggests a massive Labour victory. Yeah. But I'll be asking Scarlett Maguire, is it going to be Tories completely decimated and down to as many seats as the Lib Dems, Or is it going to be a bit more of a generous showing for the Tories? But at the moment, you'd think that 3 months ago, if you said they'd be down to 150 seats, people would be putting their hands in the air going, oh, my God. And now it's like, if they were down to 150, they'd be quite happy with that.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's a very, very strange election. But anyway, we look forward to seeing you at 9:30. Thank you very much indeed. Well, throughout the campaign, we've been hearing from you. Today, time to get the views of Muniba from Essex, who hopes the next government, whoever it is, prioritise social services, as she's had a lot of problems with the current system.
I think it's really important for whoever the next government is to realise that people like myself, carers and parents, we need respite in order for us to have a better quality of life, in order for us to give our young person or our children the best quality of life as well. My son is Yusuf. He's 23 years old. He has Down syndrome, learning difficulties, and he's on the autistic spectrum as well. You know, the sad thing is about the manifestos, I've not heard anything about disability. Nothing's been brought up at all about people with disabilities, about children with disabilities. It's never even mentioned in their social care. So it's a huge worry. I have no faith left in any of the parties to say that they would be providing support for my son in any sense of the way, because it's, as I said, it's not even mentioned in their manifestos. The government needs to understand that, you know, looking at the short term isn't the way to go, because what will happen is you'll get a carer who will end up having a breakdown, which causes all sorts of issues, and then it costs every borough, every council so much more money. If they were to look at the long term and to give carers like myself that respite, it would benefit them financially as well as benefit us as well. Jubilee Lodge has been an absolute lifesaver for us as a family. Respite for my family personally, it's a lifeline. It's the best way to describe it. It gives us the break that we need, and it also gives Yusuf the independence he needs as well, away from us.
Oh, that's lovely. Muniba.
Which makes a really interesting point, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, let's move on, should we, to the mother of missing 19-year-old Jay Slater. Now, she says Spanish police have stepped up their search for her son, who disappeared in Tenerife 7 days ago.
Yeah, yesterday, search and rescue workers and police and firefighters combed through a vast area of the valley where Jay was last seen.
Well, Debbie Duncan, his mum, spent 8 hours in a police station on Friday, where police outlined to her their search plans.
Earlier on, we spoke with the former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit, Mike Neville.
All sorts of speculation on social media, and matters have been reported in the press and the Express, especially about Jay's past. And these things will be being looked into. And there's been another possible sighting several hours later that his mum's highlighted. But the Spanish police do seem to be focusing on this theory that he's got lost himself. They're basing it on the idea that he rang up himself and said, look, I'm lost. So they seem to be discounting any elements of criminality or some kind of kidnap, and they're really focusing on this, the area of the park. And as I've stated, they've actually shown maps of the ravines that they're looking into. And so I think the Spanish police have been quite good at PR, in the sense that they are telling us exactly what they're doing and the theories that they hold. I think the Spanish police they've published quite detailed analysis of where they're going to search, focusing on these 3 ravines. And there's been similarities drawn, of course, through this search and the one for Dr. Michael Mosley. But the difference in the landscape you can see when you view the television images of the island, that whereas where in the Greek island it was pretty barren, this area of Tenerife is quite wooded, and so there's so many places that somebody could have laid down to rest or take shelter, and it's not so visible from the air. So whilst the Spanish police are making use of helicopters and drones, they're really reliant on humans, so either the police officers, volunteers or park rangers and dogs, to try and locate Jay Slater. Now, we can only hope that he is alive and he's okay, but it's a long time now, and this is an area which is hot in the day and very cold at night. And of course, the lad was out in clothes that he'd worn at a festival, you know, a T-shirt and shorts. So we can only hope that he's found very, very dehydrated somewhere. But I really feel for the mother, and I know every mother would have great hope, but it just doesn't look like it at the moment.
No, it looks very bleak at the moment. Let's hope there's good news today.
Yes, we keep our fingers crossed. Right, it is the final week to see if you could be very lucky with our summer giveaway. 15 grand in cash and a whole load of treats, but you've only got until 5 o'clock Friday evening, so don't miss out. Here are the details.
It's the final week to see how you could win big this summer. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. You have to hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. And in a couple of moments, we'll be looking at Nigel Farage's comments that the West provoked Russia with an expert who can explain all. That's next.
I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 years ago, the small town of Evanston proudly became the first local government in the... It's just outside Chicago, by the way. The first local government in the US to start paying slavery reparations to its black citizens. But now the council is being sued in a federal court for exhibiting exactly the sort of prejudice it decries. By saying, well, basically, you know, the Hispanics, the white people, they are being discriminated against because they're not getting anything.
The people that were compensated were adults, people that were adults between 1919 and 1969. Now, they lived under a time, in terms of education, in terms of the job market, they were literally barred from having certain jobs, going to certain healthcare clinics and going to certain schools. So that is a set of very distinct challenges that white people, Hispanic people, Asian people did not face. So that is precisely why they've been compensated in this way. And I think it's about £20,000 it works out to. I would have given him a lot more.
But you see, the thing is, history, we learn from history and we move on, and people evolve. And in order to reach a certain goal and a certain level of parity, which is what we all want to do, and through no way of levelling up, and this is a form of levelling up, by the way, it's nothing else, and it's divisive and it's patronising, I think it's absolutely disgusting. There were people in modern history who were discriminated against constantly, and I think it's so divisive to keep going back, to keep reiterating, to keep saying, oh, poor you. Between 1919 and 1969, you couldn't get a mortgage. Well, that was wrong. No one's saying it was right. But do we need to be compensated for that?
The legal challenge is saying that this is creating more divisions.
Yes.
The past is affecting the present, but not in a good way.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Right, let's go back to the Nigel Farage issue now and the comments he made in relation to the West, he said, provoking Russia into war.
Well, earlier on we spoke with defence editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Please explain this. I mean, did anything Nigel Farage say in that interview make sense to you at all?
Well, I've discussed this with Nigel Farage on GB News, and he has been very critical of the war in Ukraine from the first. At least he's been consistent about that. And as he suggested, he is not alone. He was endorsed on Twitter quite immediately by a well-known friend of Russia. I mean, that's George Galloway. And there is a curious left-wing academic grouping around the London campuses, the LSE in particular, that also believe in this idea of NATO as an aggressor. A lot of this started before Putin got to power, when there were undertakings given and taken about the sovereignty of Ukraine. And that's the thing you cannot get around. In 1994, in order for Ukraine to give up nuclear weapons, and it had a large bulk of the nuclear arsenal of the old Soviet Union, that the Russia, as it was then, the newly freed of communism Russia under Yeltsin, agreed at Budapest that they would support the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine. And it goes on and on from there. Putin comes to power at the beginning of the century, and he's always had an aggressive stance to NATO. Then you come to the extraordinary year of 2014, when there was an upheaval in Ukraine, because Ukraine had been offered association in trade terms with the EU, and there was the uprising, the Maidan Square thing, and you cannot understand Crimea until you look at the Maidan Square uprising, which threw out the president, who was Putin's man. And it goes on from there. But to say that NATO is an aggressor and a provoker, that's where we get into nuanced territory. Because was there an understanding that NATO wouldn't expand? It's very difficult to say.
And that is something, as Camilla Tominey was saying earlier, that she will be discussing a lot in her programme today. It is about the nuance and the context of those comments, isn't it? But it certainly has made news today.
Yeah, it has. And you know what? It's a bit of a tension on reform. And it's quite right that everything that is said by all the party leaders is examined and looked at and all the rest of it. Because at the end of the day, they can say what they like, commentators can say what they like. It's up to you still to decide who you believe at the end of it, or who you would trust more with what is going on in this country and elsewhere.
And there we were complaining that the election was getting a bit boring. I don't think it is. It's sort of...
heating up in the last week.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, Camilla's going to be here with all your politics in just a moment.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. There is some cloud around this morning, even some low cloud mist and drizzle, but it's going to turn increasingly sunny through the rest of the day and the next few days, with temperatures rising as a result. Best of the sunshine first thing, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England. Across the Midlands, parts of central southern England, South Wales and the southwest. A fair amount of low cloud first thing, even some drizzle over the hills and coasts with some mist lurking around the coasts of southwest England. That could persist through much of the day, but inland the cloud will break up, and as the sun comes through, highs of 22 to 25 Celsius are expected. Now, later in the day, the cloud across southern parts will break up more widely, and I think through the evening we'll have some late sunshine coming through. It's going to stay warm as well. A lovely evening out there. Just some drizzle there over Dartmoor and some mist lurking around the coast of Devon. Other than that, plenty of fine weather as we end Sunday. Northern Ireland seeing some cloud arrive into the west, and western Scotland, again, some cloud and some low cloud at that, starting to push in as we end the day. But this area of rain tends to be shunted to the far north, and it will largely avoid Scotland as it pushes away. That means that overnight we'll see widespread dry weather and clear skies. Under those clear skies, a few mist patches could once again pop up here and there, and we'll keep the coastal mist across southern parts of England. But widely, it's a beautiful start to the day on Monday morning. Plenty of sunshine up and down the country. Couple of exceptions. Coastal parts of southern England, again some low cloud and mist, and the far northwest of Scotland, some low cloud here with some patchy rain and drizzle. But where we've got the sunny skies elsewhere, temperatures rising as a result, and highs of 26 or 27 Celsius are possible.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
98-year-old veteran Ken Cook shared his memories of D-Day at a special event in Harrogate. As a former Green Howards private, Ken was part of an armada of vessels carrying more than 150,000 Allied soldiers to France. And he was just a teenager when his regiment landed on Gold Beach in Normandy.
Everybody was telling us, the officers and the sergeants, corporals, they're telling, get off the beach, lads, quick, because there's some more stuff coming behind.